Everything is still on hold, even though Hollywood seems to think everything's fine. Nothing to look at here. We'll talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about what's coming up this weekend. All that good stuff. But we have Chris Gore here. That's the real news, kids. Chris Gore is in the house. It's Wednesday. Welcome to the show. I'm Tom Connors. And, of course, with me, as always, is the boss man, Andre. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. Greetings, everyone. And I'm doing especially good since we have Chris Gore here.
Hey, thanks, Andre. Actually, thanks, Andre and Tom, for I don't know what appearance this is on your show, but I appreciate that you think of me. So
I can do a quick count if you want, real quick.
All right.
I think this is like the fourth or fifth, maybe fifth.
I think it's more like the fifth.
Okay, fifth. Yeah. All right. Well, I'll take it.
So it's like an anniversary.
Yeah, but I love that it's Midnight's Edge because it's Midnight's Edge in the morning for you and I, Tom.
Yeah,
it's mostly morning, but here we are with lots to talk about.
Absolutely,
we always have lots to talk about with you, which is so awesome that you're here. And Six says, "Whoa, time flies! Only 10 minutes late." Yeah, you should have heard me behind the scenes. Like, guys, we're 10 minutes behind now. Push the button.
Yeah, because we get talking and because we love Chris. Grant Mizzou sent us a super sticker already. Thank you for that. We also have plenty of other regulars in the chat I see here. Hello. Like Alec, Lindsay with a wrench, and Six, as we just mentioned, the SEM guy, Duck Nation, Cody guy's here. Donnie Canup, if I'm saying that right. I hate mispronouncing people's names, but I do my best. RJ Oldenburg is here. Spider Unlimited is here as well. Fat Elvis is here in the house. Yeah. So hopefully y'all are doing well. We have Super Blubberpuss as well. Jason Gray is here. Welcome. Yankee Doodle Dandy. Thank you.
And we have Karen Prime here. We have the Norwegian Blue, who's actually not Norwegian. I'll get back to you soon, by the way. I have a email waiting that reminds me. And we have Six, of course, is here. And we have Film Lars representing Denmark. One of two regular Danes in the chat, or at least two that I know of. Cosmic Squirrel is here, and I bypassed the compressor. Says hail all. You gotta love that name.
Better than bypassing the plot like Ray, but yeah.
Yeah, and possibly like Indiana Jones, but you will get into that. And Etienne Falardeau is here, and the deleted scenes says for $2. Hail Andre, Tom, Chris, Wrenches, and chat. Yes, indeed. Hail one, hail all.
Yes. So, how have you been, Chris? We're glad to have you back here in the morning show. Been a little bit.
Yeah, just trying to survive living in California. Yeah, exactly. So just trying to survive that. I'm seeing Dune for a second time on tomorrow, actually, at the TCL Chinese Theater IMAX screen, one of the best IMAX screens in Los Angeles, at least for as long as I'm still here. So I'm looking forward to seeing Dune again. I think we've all three of us now seen Dune.
Yes.
And
it actually opens wide tomorrow. Yep.
Yeah, and then everyone will be able to see it. And finally I can talk to it with others since I saw it like 6 weeks ago.
Yes, lucky you. But no, I'm really curious about how a general audience is going to react to this movie, and I can't predict that. I'm terrible at predicting how a general audience will react because my taste tends to be so eclectic with indie films that I love, and I love a good mainstream big blockbuster Hollywood movie if it's done well. It's unfortunate that Hollywood seems to have forgotten how to do that. So
it's funny you mentioned that because after watching it, I said to Andre, I'm like, outside of the score, which half the time I can't tell where the score begins and the sound effects end.
Well, usually they're the same thing.
Yeah, except for when in the background or whatever. That's the only time I can tell that's supposed to be music.
Right.
Yeah, here's like a hint. When they really want to try to tell you that this is music, then there's a lady chanting Hava Nagila in the background, then you know it's music.
And there's like two spots. There's two spots where there's like a guitar swelling, and then few other things. It's like that was almost music. But no, other than that, I said to Andre, I'm like, this feels like a movie that was done in the 70s and 80s. Like, I really got that feeling evoked inside me. Like, it was that old school, like sitting down and getting ready for tonight on ABC Sunday night at the movie, you know, that kind of a thing. Like when we were kids, you know, that excitement throughout the film, I kept feeling it. Like, even though I was waiting for it to slow down because everybody's like, oh, it gets boring, it takes its time, it's this, it's that, it's the other. I'm like, no, I felt like the movie handled its 2.5 hour runtime really well. It had that kind of just impact on me when I saw it. Was like, well, like when I was a kid, when I would see one of these kind of movies where it was just like, bam, you know, like seeing, you know, the original Close Encounters for the first time, or Star Wars, or Lord of the Rings even. It really made me feel a lot of the Lord of the Rings kind of feeling the first time I saw that. It was kind of a sigh of relief, like, oh, good. At least they didn't screw it up at first. And then it was like, okay, this is really good. They did a great job. Now I can't wait for the next part.
Although I will say, I think the bagpipes actually work. There's sort of a war rallying cry.
There is some things that do work, yes.
Yeah, so it's unusual, and I think Hans Zimmer is known for unusual scores. But you're right, Tom. The sound design kind of bleeds into the soundtrack where you're not sure. I mean, it opens. I mean, the opening music is just nuts. I mean, I know you saw it. You didn't see it in the theater, but having seen it in a theater, it's such a rousing, beginning. It just hits you in the face. But I'm just, again, my big thing with this film, because it does feel like a movie that doesn't feel influenced by the things that are destroying modern blockbusters, right? Like,
exactly, yeah.
So what's good about that, it's sort of immune from that, because it's also a novel that was written in 1965, and it's fairly accurate to the novel. It really does capture a lot of the aspects of it. I mean, one thing I really liked, this isn't a big spoiler, but there is communication with the Bene Gesserit using hand signals, and they use subtitles for that. I think it's a much better way to convey the thoughts of characters, rather than, perhaps he wanted that, when like, where David Lynch would have this like whispering, he'd have the characters whisper as he showed a close-up on them to show their inner thoughts. I think their inner thoughts are conveyed by the performances, and then also by subtitles, which are used more than you would think throughout the film. So
I thought they did that really well too. Like, that's one of the things that impressed me ever since reading the script like 2 years ago, was that they had a much better way of conveying character thoughts and motivations and stuff like that in this one than they had in the Lynch version, and in the John Harrison TV series, for that matter.
Yeah, I agree. So the way that the story is told is better. I mean, I will say this, I still have an affection for the David Lynch version, just because the design is so crazy. Plus, we get to see a guild navigator right at the beginning of the movie. It kind of sets it up. I mean, Lynch had to simplify it, put it in like 2 hours and 10 minutes, and he did the best he could with the technology at the time.
Well, he didn't know, to be fair, when he was filming it, he didn't know that he had 2 hours. He thought he had 3 or 4 hours, and it was after he was filming it that Dino De Laurentiis told him, oh yeah, by the way, 2 hours. And he was like, what? Yeah. I can't do this in 2 hours. But don't care. Find a way.
Yeah.
And then they had to do like that. No, the thing with the Guild Navigator, that was simply their creative choice in trying to basically explain the plot with the Emperor behind it all, by literally having the Emperor explaining the whole plot. Whereas here, they've done, in this new movie, they've done it closer to the novel in this sense, so you won't have the Emperor coming in at the beginning. And again, for everyone worried about spoilers, this is not a spoiler. This is from the 1984 movie. This is what happens there. To explain the story to the audience, in the opening scene, you have a guild operator, or guild navigator, that comes to the Emperor of the known universe and says, okay, we have a complicated story here, so lay it out for the audience. Who are you, and what's your plan, and why do you have it? Okay, everyone got that? Now carry on with the story. That was the purpose of that scene.
Yeah, I mean, it perfectly sets it up, but so I'm just, again, back to like, are just general audiences going to embrace this film? I think that Dune fans are going to be ecstatic because of the accuracy to the book, and just because the cast and the effects. I mean, that's the one thing that I think is pretty incredible achievement about this And Tom, when you see it again in IMAX, you'll notice it's so different than anything we've seen in sci-fi. I think there tends to be a sameness to a lot of things, especially when it comes to like Marvel movies or, you know, Star Wars. There's like, it's just, it ends up just looking and feeling the same, right? This feels very different. It's the production design, the way it's executed, the sound design, it's otherworldly, and it's a vision of sci-fi we've just not seen. Is that going to appeal to general audiences? Is that enough? So Dune fans are going to be on board. Uber nerds are going to be on board, even if they're not Dune fans. Our general audience is going to accept it. That remains to be seen.
That was my question too after seeing it.
Yeah. I don't know. We're going to know. I mean, it also is 2.5 hours. So it's, you know, that, you know, people do kind of, you know, they look at running times of movies, right? Planning their day, right? It's going to be a long movie. What? It doesn't feel long. That's what's great. I mean, it doesn't feel 2.5 hours in the least, but I don't know. You know, I thought James Bond was going to do much better, but James Bond was really hurt by the marketing, which turned out to be really misleading, incredibly misleading. I don't think people have been misled at all by what Dune is. They've kind of leaned into sort of the, you know, the fact that this is a colonialist story, I guess. But those elements were always in the original, which were really kind of, you know, inspired by Lawrence of Arabia. So I don't know. Like, I think maybe will it do more than 25 million this weekend at the box office? I think basically HBO threw Dune under the bus, because not only is it on HBO Max, they even moved up. You can see it tomorrow night on HBO Max on Thursday. I mean, that's ridiculous. So I don't know what their thinking is. It's like they've done everything they can to sabotage this.
Yeah.
Having said that, I believe HBO needs a franchise, as we've seen kind of franchises dying on the vine, right? Like Terminator. I don't know. My guess is they'll still try to make another Terminator someday. Marvel's kind of lost its sheen, right? Like, and I think with Eternals, and we're going to get to Eternals because there's news about that. I think that they're in need of a franchise. They need some kind of franchise to kind of root, which will turn into at least 2 more movies. And then, you know, there's a planned Bene Gesserit television series, which will be really interesting. But, you know, I don't know. I'm sort of shrugging my shoulders saying this is literally like going to Vegas and saying, all right, I'm just going to bet this number.
Yeah, that's the big problem, is HBO Max dropping it, right? Like,
yeah.
And I thought, okay, it made more sense if maybe they dropped it a day early in theaters to kind of push people to go see it that day early in theaters. Because if that was the case, you know, I think it would do a lot better than it is. But I think you're right. I think the fact that HBO Max is dropping it is going to really undercut the box office, because we saw it with Godzilla versus Kong. Like, arguably in the middle of the worst kind of the lockdown, that movie comes out and manages to do what it does. And most of us, you know, can't argue that it probably would have been $1 billion movie at any other time, right? Like the momentum that movie had. And I think we've seen it recently with Venom and certain other movies, that this movie has potential, and whatever potential that had just went out the fucking window, probably because there's more than enough people who are more than willing to sit at home. Because we saw it, look at how it affected movies like Space Jam and stuff. Movies that really weren't going to be a hit anyway, but it made them an absolute bomb at the box office. And with Dune, though, I think it's had a lot of pent up, like, people want it. Like, they need this. They want something like this. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I keep hearing people say is, I want to see it in the theater. I want to see it on the big screen. So that's a plus for them. But the other problem I've seen now coming around is, I don't care anymore. Like, people, like the buzz has kind of wore off. Most people have seen it. It's pretty well known that it's out on the high seas in certain forms.
Mm-hmm.
That was always my worry, that people were going to lose interest in the 6 weeks between the international opening and the domestic release. Because, like, for instance, yesterday we dropped a video on the Dune soundtrack. It hasn't even broken 10,000 views yet in 24 hours. And that's like one of the least successful videos we've put out in, like, I don't know, 4 years or something. and it's Dune, and Dune is opening this week. I mean, you'd think even by accident it should have got to at least 20, 30,000 views, but no, it hasn't even broken 10,000 views. I mean, a Conan video with no Conan in development or nothing happening does better than that.
Here's the sad part. In a normal situation, had they not dropped this on HBO Max, I believe this movie still might do in that $60-70 million range this weekend. I think it has that potential. But had you not dropped it on HBO Max, it could have soared into that closer to the $100 million range. And I think people have been like, here we go. We got the next Lord of the Rings on our hands. Now I don't think that potential is going to be even realized at all. I mean, even though there's probably going to be a lot of people who get into it, because I have not seen anybody who's really hated it yet, right? Like, I've talked to a few people who've seen it. They all like either, yeah, it's good, but it's different, which you're going to get that from some people. I get it. It's not everybody's cup of tea, just like the Lynch Dune, right?
Right.
But at the same time, I feel like this one's a lot more accessible than that one. And I feel like the storyline is really going to pull in a lot of those like Game of Thrones fans, and it's going to fill that void for people who want like a sword and sorcery or stuff like that. Even though this isn't sword and sorcery, I get that. It has a lot of those elements to it, like Lord of the Rings, where you have that epic, grand scale to it, and it does feel immense. And in the sound design, like you were saying, like the music aside, the sound design. If this movie does not win best sound design next year at the Oscars, I'll be amazed. Like, the sound in this movie is one of the best sound mixes I've ever heard in a movie before. And this is going up against last year when we had Tenet, when everybody hated that sound mix. No. This is a home theater enthusiast wet dream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So, but again, I don't know. Is it gonna? I mean, Bond did what, 56 million?
But see, besides the marketing, I think the other thing that killed Bond was the word of mouth that got out.
Obviously, and again, that was also because it opened a week earlier internationally, so word of mouth and all kinds of spoilers and stuff could spread there.
That's what
that was 1 week. Here's been 6 weeks.
I know.
What the hell are they thinking?
The upside of Dune is there's nothing really to spoil. The downside is, I think the thrill is gone. We may, and this is, I hate saying this, we may face a weekend where Michael Myers actually makes more money than Dune. If the weekend goes in and the buzz from that movie it's been mixed, but enough people are enjoying it, and I don't think enough people know what Peacock is. Like, I think that's why Halloween managed to do as well as it did. But we have another problem for that movie is HBO is getting that movie this weekend too for HBO Max for some reason. They made a deal. So Halloween Kills drops tomorrow or the next day, October 22nd on HBO Max as well.
That worries me more because here's like the thing. Honestly, I don't think the box office for Dune matters all that much. Though on that point, I want to highlight this comment, from Fear is the Mind Killer. I just happened to glimpse past this, and I thought it was really good. And he says, "I'm afraid Dune will turn into the new Dread 3D. Great movie, sadly cut short because of internal politics." Yes, that could very well happen.
And I think Andre was going to get to what I was going to say, and that is people are going to stay home and watch Halloween on HBO Max this weekend.
Yeah, that's what has me worried. And the reason that has me worried is this. I don't think that the box office matters all that much because they have already made it clear that some kind of deal has happened between Warner and Legendary to basically buy out the box office in favor of the HBO Max release. What they've said is that if the movie does well for HBO Max, then they're going to proceed with sequels. However, then you're going to put it straight up against Halloween Kills on HBO Max. And I think there's a very good chance that Halloween Kills on HBO Max might kill Dune.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing is HBO has less investment in it, though. That's the thing. It's Legendary, and they had to pay that big old check to Legendary. So the movie's probably in the black already, as far as like through Legendary's eyes, because I think they got $100 million check from Warner Brothers up front.
Yeah, exactly. But now it has to perform for Warner, or now it has to perform on HBO Max, and if it doesn't perform there, they're not going to put their weight behind any kind of sequel.
And what's weird is that Dune's budget, Natasha points out, is relatively small for a modern blockbuster. It really was. I mean, when you first of all, and every dollar of that 165 million is on the screen. It really so from the cast to the production design to the sets to everything about it. It's almost as if like that Denis Villeneuve knew that really the second movie is going to be the one where you're going to need a lot more. And the first movie was really about the setup, the setting, the tone, the music. He was creating kind of the template and sort of the design Bible for Dune films going forward. So we'll see. And again, we don't know what their metrics are, right? And we also don't know how the financing was put together. That's a thing that doesn't get talked about, is that sometimes rights are shared, and the money that the studio has at stake is actually less because there are other foreign investors from other territories. So when that's all put together, the sort of the weird algebra, the formula for a success of a film, or the perceived success internally at a studio like Warner Brothers, is we don't know what those parameters are. So someone, I hope smarter, although I don't know, when I talk about studio executives, I don't know that I should use the term smart in the same sentence, but they knew what they were doing by putting Dune on there. It really is to build. I mean, HBO Max is looking to edge out Netflix and Disney Plus and everybody. They're hardcore serious. So someone must know something, but I think it would give a lot of confidence in the audience if we knew another movie was coming, because when you see this film, and we've all seen it, the three of us talking right now, when you see it, you're like, okay, this is I can't wait to see what happens next. When is that coming out? The best thing that could happen right now is they could announce, hey, there's a Dune sequel coming. It's going to be only in theaters. You'll also be able to see it at some point on HBO Max. We're announcing it now because we're so confident in the worldwide success of this property. Additionally, we're going to do other spinoffs because, the revenue streams aren't just box office. It's HBO Max. It's merch and licensing. This is a franchise, and if they're going to build a franchise, they should prove that they've got some confidence in it by greenlighting the 2 follow-up films. It's supposed to be 3 movies encompassing the first 2 Dune books. So when is this announcement coming? Are they waiting for Friday or Monday? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that I agree with you. Even though the movie does, in the title, say, part 1 or whatever, I still think there's that kind of like, are we going to get another one?
Yeah, there's reason to be doubtful in this particular case. Yeah, do not take that sequel for granted.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And Double Back again says, $165 million budget. Would that mean about $400 million to break even? Roughly, I would say more closer, like probably 450, maybe even a little bit more, because you got to factor in the advertising. And that's the thing, is most people are like, oh, if it does double it. No, I go by the rule of 3 just to be fair. And that's where a lot of people are like, oh, Shang-Chi made money. I'm like, no, I don't think it did. They can claim it did all day, but we're going by the numbers that they told us. And even if you do figure it made money, it barely made any money, because they advertised the shit out of that movie. So I know the marketing budget was pretty high for Shang-Chi. Maybe not nearly as high as some of the other Marvel films, but it's still pretty high. And we're seeing the same thing now with the Eternals, which they're starting to ramp up that advertising campaign. In the last few days, I've seen nothing but Eternal ads on YouTube. So they are spending the money. But we do know that the premiere was the other night, and the critics got to see it last night. And why don't we get on that subject real quick, Chris? Because we were talking about that before the show.
Yeah. Well, guess what?
Yeah. Before we do that, though, let's just get caught up on the super chats that were pertaining to Dune and the questions about Dune, because we got a couple of those. And when we have done that, then we shall head straight on over to the Eternals. Now, and I have the repository here behind the scenes. So just give me 1 second, I'll get to that. So we'll do the Dune super chats and then Eternals. That should be a real hoot, because that movie looks... Yeah, we'll get into it. But getting back to today's super chat. Said, hi, gents. Hello, everyone, for $4.99. And go catch the replay of her on Toxic Femininity this Monday. And Hypergiver 2 said for $5, good morning, everyone. I hope all is well and wishing everyone a wonderful day as on this first day of Vetternatter. That's like an ancient Norse tradition thing of those are like the 3 days when winter begins. Which is like a holiday where sacrifices were to be made.
Why am I not surprised that Norwegians celebrate the day that winter begins?
Yeah, well, of course you celebrate. You have to do some sacrifice to the gods and stuff, some blood sacrifice to make sure the winter won't be too harsh. But Hypergiver 2, he sent another $5 saying, first chat made no sense, so I'm trying again. Wishing the blessings of the Alfar and the D seed on you and everyone in the chat. Have a blessed Fatternatter. So, yes, thank you.
Fatter ladder to you too.
And then we have, let's see here. Grand Wasu 42 sent a popcorn super sticker. And Peter Smigelski wonders, were there any Jodorowsky influence within this newest version?
Not
Chris,
really.
did you see any Jodorowsky influence within this iteration of Dune?
I don't really think so, to be honest. Like and that documentary is fantastic. Alejandro Jodorowsky's Dune is a really great documentary. And I strongly recommend Jodorowsky's Santa Sangre. Brilliant film. But I really didn't. His vision was very, very different. It definitely was more 70s for sure. He didn't, and also Jodorowsky wanted to change. And I even felt this when I read the book, that there may have been some sort of, for lack of a better term, an Oedipal relationship going on between Paul and his mother. It seemed to imply that there was something there, and Jodorowsky just sort of like that was part of his script, which makes more sense because his sister Aaliyah is an abomination, right? But I don't really see it. Like visually, if you go back and watch the Jodorowsky Dune documentary, you'll see that it was a very different look for that movie. It definitely felt more Jodorowsky, but I don't see that influence so much. Although I would have liked that if he ever made it, and of course, if you watch that doc, you see that unmade movie had a huge influence on a lot of other science fiction, namely Star Wars and Alien going forward. So that's another. Don't miss that doc. Yeah.
Did you see any Jodorowsky influence?
No, just maybe tangentially, just because they went back to some of Geiger's designs for the Lynch movie. Outside of that, there's like that tangential, just because you can kind of feel the echoes of the Lynch movie in this. And that's the thing. I was afraid there was going to be too much of that, but I think it was just the right sprinkled amount. Like it feels like it feels familiar enough like that, but it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm just seeing the same fucking movie all over again. That's the beauty of it. And I get some people have said, oh, it's the same movie or something like that. I don't see that. No,
what I will say on that is that none of you see like too clear Jodorowsky references, because there are none there. There's absolutely none. That's why you don't see it, because they're not there.
Well,
there's zero influence from Jodorowsky on the Denis Villeneuve's Dune. As Tom said, though, and as Midnight Edge exclusively revealed more than 2 years ago, there are plenty heavy references to the David Lynch movie. So anything that maybe remind you of Jodorowsky is there because it also found its way into the Lynch movie. So that's like it's like 2 times derived by way of Lynch. Lynch references, there most definitely are. Direct Jodorowsky references, not a single one.
Yeah, and which is funny, because watching Jodorowsky's Dune, seeing the difference between the two kind of designs between the other stuff and then what Geiger had designed, it's like, are they even designing for the same fucking movie? Like,
that was kind of the point. And it wasn't just that it was the 70s; they were still stuck in the 60s, including with the LSD and everything. So yeah.
Right.
And Phil Moore said, Gary, presumably of Neurotic, I guess, said between Dune or Suicide Squad, he'd rather watch Suicide Squad again. A wow or disavow? I'm not gonna do either. I'm simply going to say that that is Gary's opinion, and I'm quite sure there's going to be many who will share it, because there is fun in the Suicide Squad. I presume that he means that one and not the original one. There's fun to be had. You laugh and you have a good time. With Dune, you may be be impressed, you may be wowed, but you won't laugh. You won't smile and laugh at it the way that you will with Dune. So I can see that many people will probably feel that the Suicide Squad has greater rewatch value just for that. That's my take.
Yeah. No, I agree with that, Andre. I think you're right. I think that the rewatch value, just simply because, and then again, I can see there's certain aspects of this movie. Like, here's my one point of contention with the movie. They do go out of their way to avoid certain terms and ways of referring to things in this film that kind of stick out, but not unless you really know that they were different to begin with. You know what I mean? Like finding the mood scene, for instance, there's some line changes there. They never say the word jihad. They never say certain.
Yeah, they didn't, did they?
Nope. And
they chickened out. That was cowardly.
So like, there's just certain aspects where there's certain shots and scenes, or not shots, but scenes where it's mostly in dialogue. It's just, and it's not like the dialogue has changed. It's just they've changed or they left out little aspects. Like in the mood scene, of course, they leave out the line where, you know, mood is for love, play, and whatever else the other line was, I forgot. But like that's all left out, and, you know, insinuating, you know, that kind of a bit with the whole sex bit about it. And then, like, yeah, they never say jihad, and there's a little bit more, I think, at least in the respect of, I hope this isn't too much of a spoiler, because if you should already know the story, but I think they kind of pre-set up Paul's destiny a little bit more here than I remember in any other version of the story before. I could be wrong, but it feels like it was a little more heavy-handed here than it was in the Lynch version. Of course, because it actually gets a resolution in the Lynch version too.
Yeah, 100%. It's almost like Paul has these visions that are kind of a trailer for the next movie, in a way.
Yeah, and I mean, there's much more like tension between him and his mother, in a sense of his blame upon her in this version than any other version I've seen before.
Yeah, he resents her for basically setting this path, which, I mean, they're trying to set him up as a messiah, right? By the Bene Gesserit travel to all these other planets, and they kind of, like, with the locals, kind of manipulate them and say, oh, you know, there's going to be, at some point, there will be this savior that's going to come and do this. And then they kind of set it up so that when they actually bring someone in, they're kind of tricking these more primitive cultures. It's pretty fascinating, and we've never seen that play out. That's sort of, it's kind of like, you know, I mean, Dune has received that criticism of being a white savior story, but it's sort of it's a flip on that story, you know, in a good way, and it always was in the book.
Yeah.
So you could always tell people who've never read the book when they level that criticism, because it doesn't stick to me. As for Gary's remark, I totally understand. I mean, I saw his live stream yesterday. I don't know if sometimes I get confused with the live streams. This is the real BBC. This like,
I think yesterday was Hot Toys.
The Midnight's Edge just, you know what I mean? But it's fine.
We try to keep it simple here. We got Midnight's Edge in the morning. We got Midnight's Edge after dark.
Exactly. I love that. It's like morning and night. Okay, I get that. But yeah, no, Gary's point was just like, you know, it sort of lacked that fun. And Suicide Squad you would see again. I think that speaks to Gary's taste more than anything. I don't want to speak for him, but he's got different taste, as do we all. And I respect his taste and I respect his opinion. So what he had to say, I think, was completely valid. And Suicide Squad is fun. You know, I don't know about that spinoff. Did you guys? I don't know. Did you watch the DC Fandome stuff?
I did watch it.
We were messaging over the weekend, Tom, a whole group of us, about it. It was pretty bad. I mean,
it was cringe.
It was pretty bad. I'm not, the only thing that stood out to me was the Batman trailer, which I actually like the other trailer better because it was just the music.
I agree. The trailer from a year ago was so much better than this thing.
Yeah, it's much better trailer. This shows the spectacle. Okay, we knew that was going to be there anyways, but I don't know. But everything else they showed at that DC Fandome thing was just, like pretty uninteresting. Just a lot of CW shows, including The Flash, which looked like a CW show, including it was just like, which, I mean, not the reference.
That's kind of how I felt about the Batman trailer. Half of it, you saw the spectacle, so I'm like, oh yeah, it feels like a Batman movie. Mm-hmm. And then the other half, I'm like, is this a fucking CW show or what? Like, that's the level of like the acting and the back and forth, and
I do know, I've heard, and I get rumblings from sources and people and whatnot that it's amazing. It's 3 hours. The fight now is to keep it that long. Yeah, no. I'm just telling you. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just saying.
No, I know, but Jesus, 3 hours of Batman? I don't know. I mean,
I'll take it.
No, not of Batman, of Pattman.
I was gonna say that's my point. Like the last Batman was bad enough, like with the Christian Bale one. Like Dark Knight was fine, but then you get into Dark Knight Rises, and Nolan got too indulgent, and that movie's like over 2.5 hours long from my recollection. I'm sitting there through the whole movie, just like, oh my god.
Even he got cut back. I mean, his wife, producer, talked about how they made him change that movie. They made him like it had to be under a certain running time. And there's a version of The Dark Knight Rises that exists that is much longer and apparently fixes many of the flaws that people would point out of the film. Certain things kind of happen too quickly or too conveniently. There's a lot of like overly like I call it Captain Narrative, where they just have to this happens a lot in Nolan films where he'll pick a character that's inconsequential and just give that guy all the lines that tells the audience that can't keep up what's going on. So and you notice that so often in movies, it's pretty lazy in terms of writing. If Nolan has a flaw as a filmmaker, that's his one thing, is he kind of gives all his narrative lines to one person. But that was kind of spread throughout, and it was kind of, they simplified it. But my understanding is, and you can look this up, there's a longer version of it that exists, and his wife has spoken about it. And there was a little bit of disappointment that he was pressured by the studio to deliver a final product that was, what we got. So
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. But Dark Knight Rises is like the only one of those Batman movies I only watched once. I bought it, but I never watched it again. I never finished it. I started watching. I'm like, this is boring.
I thought they kind of blew it. I mean, they kind of set it up where, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character was going to be Robin. Why did they just make him Robin? Why didn't, Batman just say, hey, put this, if you're going to do this, put on a mask. He's got the logo of what was it? The Gotham, is it the Gotham Rangers, or what's the name of the team? They had the R was the logo. The Gotham what? No,
that was in
the football team. The Gotham. It's not Rangers, but I'm close.
Not
the Raiders.
It was a movie that completely retroactively ruined that entire trilogy. I mean, talk about dropping the ball.
You're right.
Yeah, help me out with the sport thing, but they dropped the ball worse than most trilogies.
It's like Godfather 3.
It's like Spider-Man 3. It's like
it's worse than that. Actually, it's worse than Last Stand.
It's worse.
Well, it's the same flaw that The Last Jedi has, which is off-screen a character has something happen to them that changes the core of their character. And because we don't see that, because we actually don't witness that personally, it doesn't make sense to us. So, Batman has his, Bruce Wayne has his parents brutally murdered, which he witnesses as a kid, takes up, the mantle of being the Batman. And then he's sad because his girlfriend died and is going to retire because of that. It's like, you would think that would make him more committed to the cause of justice.
You know what what offended me the most with that movie? This is then supposed to be Christopher Nolan's Batman saga, right? From beginning to end. And so he basically has 1 year tenure as Batman plus a comeback. So in reality, we are then led to believe that Bruce Wayne spent less time in the Batman outfit accumulated than Christian Bale did filming him.
That's a good comment, and thank you, Duck Nation, Gotham Rogues. That's correct. But the R on the Gotham Rogues team, the R was the Robin logo, right? Like that.
Yes, yeah.
There just could have been something that maybe he had a brother that was on the football team that died, and
that day, yeah.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt, they could have made his character more consequential and just sort of kept that a secret. I do know what I really appreciate about Nolan as a filmmaker is they actually have codes on the sets. The sets are made like an indie film because that's where Christopher Nolan came from, and of course, that's my passion and love is indie film. So he came from that. So they kind of run it like an indie film set, and then secondly, they have that they keep completely secret from the crew. There's only like a handful of people that know what the real script is. So you'll see that certain lines are spoken, but in ADR, they fix them. So that allows them to be able to keep major secrets in the film, although not sure exactly what secrets they were keeping in Tenet, because I've seen that movie 3 times and I still don't know exactly what the plot of that thing is. It's unnecessarily convoluted, right? I mean, so
you know what's really helpful when watching a Christopher Nolan movie for the first time in a theater?
What?
What's really helpful is being a resident of subtitle land.
Oh,
because if I only had to listen, I would have no idea what the hell they were saying with that sound mix.
Oh my God!
Whereas with subtitling, I didn't even have any issues understanding Bane.
No, that's so great because I actually keep the subtitles on, for a lot of things, and I always prefer subtitled versions of everything. I mean, I saw Squid Game, after we talked about it on Friday Night Tights, actually. Yeah. I did not participate in that part of the conversation, but because I hadn't seen it then, and I was like, all right, I'll do it. And of course, hooked from the first episode. It is really brilliant, and you have to watch that with the subtitles. The performances of those actors are just fantastic. So I hope that they don't make a follow-up. I hope it's just one and done. I'd like to see what else that same filmmaking team does. Subtitles helps a lot.
Yeah. They do. I mean, I'd love myself, like everyone from my neck of the woods loves subtitles because we grow up with them. But especially, even if you're a native English speaker on a Christopher Nolan movie, subtitles really come in handy, don't they?
Yeah, and we talked about the Squid Game last night. So bit of, because I have not watched it yet, but I plan on it here. But word has come out that the translation is horrible, I guess, or there's some screw-ups.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When you say translation, do you mean the dubbing or the subtitling?
And the closed captioning. Now, from what I've heard,
so both of them
is go in and switch from closed captioning to English. There's a difference. So I guess
So you like the subtitle
version is actually the closest to the original version. Now, I guess the company is working on a new dub, but I guess they were very upset by the version that got rushed out over here because the way these things go is these companies are overworked because they get tons of stuff and they got to go through it super quick. So I guess what happened was the translation was rushed and people who are, native Korean speakers noticed a few of the problems with it. It wasn't anything extremely major, but there was a few, like, I guess, character motivations and things about characters and things that were mixed up and convoluted within the mix. So I guess,
you're not just doing a translation for the English version of it. You're also doing translations for all these other languages because Netflix is international. A lot of times it's a literal translation. And my girlfriend who speaks fluent Mandarin Chinese will tell you there are certain words that do not exist in the English language that are direct equivalents of, Mandarin Chinese. They just don't exist, or they have other subtle meanings because there are cultural differences, which is also why I've always had an affection for just world cinema. There's a move now to not call foreign films because foreign has a negative connotation. Have you heard that, Andre?
No, that's news to me.
Well,
I think that's completely
like Demi Lovato
ridiculous.
Saying aliens shouldn't be called aliens now.
There's like
that's even worse. I mean, so what? So what you're going to call an alien then? Like an American of alien origin, or American of non-American or non-terrestrial
non-Earth origin? I guess I have no idea.
Generally, the people that are supposedly affected don't care. like the term Latin X.
I think I got it. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I got it. Non-terrestrial American.
Yeah.
Not terrestrial sounds worse.
Yeah. It's
no, but
yeah. So the subtitling can get like it's not the best translation of that. So I understand. But I also you can feel from the performances, even though look, I don't speak the language, I don't speak Korean, but like you really feel these performances with these characters. It's just great to hear their real voices. So I always go with the subtitles. The dubbed versions are in rare cases will look at a dubbed version of anything. It's just it's sort of pointless to me. But yeah,
no, I agree.
But no, I just you're gonna love it, Tom. I can't wait to talk to you about it.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. Now that I know I could at least the subtitled version is correct, I'll switch over. But that's just because people are normally your Netflix is set up for closed captioning, not subtitles. So just you got to switch it in the setting. But Callum is right here. We should get back to the chats. Thank you for the $2 Australian, Callum. And we're going to get back to the chats.
Yeah, all right. Let's get back to the chats.
We got one from who said he heard Nolan tone down the movie because of the Colorado theater shooting was supposedly inspired by the Joker from The Dark Knight.
That is bullcrap.
That is bull. Here's
that
my
is
thing:
media lies.
What actually happened was he had a completely different idea for Part 3, and when Heath Ledger died, everything changed.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that Batman Begins and then Dark Knight Rises was supposed to be like Batman Ends. Like I think there was a definitive story he had to tell because he said there was more to the Joker story. You can tell there's more being set up there. Like clearly the next movie was supposed to be we're finally seeing Batman be Batman. And then that was probably going to be the resolution of he finally, stops the major issues in Gotham. And then it's actually a safe town. And the end of the movie could be, well, it's safe for now. And Batman can rest until, trouble rears its head again kind of thing. But yeah, anyway, no, not to go out. We went a little far on the venture, but Primarch Vulcan also brings up The Dark Knight Rises. I distinctly remember seeing a promotional photos of JGL wearing a Robin suit for The Dark Knight Rises, the film before it came out. So yeah, I don't know if that
was fan made. That was that was fan made.
Yeah, fan made. I remember this pretty good though. The fan made stuff is actually so good.
There's some good stuff out there.
Yeah.
But we did have some more classic super chats, Andre. What else did
we did indeed. But first, I have to welcome our very good friend, author Stephen Walton.
Yes.
As a channel member. And everyone go check out his channel as well, and his book. So yeah, go check that out. And I saw another comment here I just want to address real quickly. So Michael Miller, don't have to catch up. Is Dune 2 a sure thing? No, it is not. Far, far from it. We'll know in a couple of weeks here, but as of right now, nope, not sure. You could end up with Dune Part 1, full stop.
The foreign box office is doing very well for it. Again, it all depends on what it does for HBO Max. Like what Andre's heard, I've heard too.
Yeah, it's all about HBO Max at this point because like they've basically written off the box office for this at this point. It's more or less an HBO Max exclusive that has a side theatrical release, but the theatrical release isn't going to determine much the one way or the other. It's HBO Max they're looking at, just as with the Snyder Cut. Yeah, it was in theaters and stuff like that, some places, but it's HBO Max that they're looking into there. And then getting back into these super chats.
Even if they do greenlight a sequel, we're about 2-3 years out from another.
That's which of course, which is good because then they have. Because there's going to be a time jump now of a few years.
Yeah, but see, they've had enough time. They should have started filming it already, is my point. Like, I get it where they're coming from, but they're going to screw themselves in more ways than one. The reason that I believe The Lord of the Rings did as well as it did is because they filmed those movies back to back to back, and they made sure they came out back to back to back.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
If there had been a 3-4 year gap in between those movies, I don't think The Two Towers would have nearly been as big, or Return of the King would have nearly been as big as the first film. And I think that's kind of what killed even the prequels had a little bit of that momentum problem, right? Like the second film, I think, was the least of all of the prequel movies, if I'm not mistaken, as far as box office. And I think what really killed that, aside from, just kind of some of the fandom menace at that time, was just that, people had to wait 3 fucking years to see the sequel. At that point, nobody really gave a shit anymore. And Spider-Man came out and destroyed it at the box office. Yeah, I mean, Star Wars did well, but it didn't do nearly as well as the last one, from my recollection. Because Attack of the Clones came out the same summer as Spider-Man, from what I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's entirely, or Spider-Man Part 2, as it were. But yeah,
was it 2? It was one of them. I knew that.
Yeah, it was Part 2. I remember that. But anyway, moving on with the classic super chats, then we'll get into the Eternals. Snowy Taco says for $4.99, Chris, we need to make Back to the Future remake.
Let's find that person and beat him up.
That person is trolling me. No, I said, and thank you, of course. Feel free to bust my balls. It doesn't bother me. I don't care. No, I've often said, like, that's the one. I feel like that's the one that is pure, that will never be remade. I just think that part of the magic of that was the cast, right? The cast of Back to the Future is just so, I mean, you couldn't do it. You can't recapture that magic. Additionally, if you were going to try to update it for a modern audience, you can't do a female version of Back to the Future because that dynamic won't work, right? You don't want like a Mandy McFly going back to the past to be hit on by her dad, right? It would be, I think that's just sort of a creepy dynamic that none of us want to see, right? So,
yeah.
So I think Back to the Future is safe, and I know that Zemeckis has said, and that that's something that just they're not going to allow that to happen. It's just so disheartening that there are so many, like, we'll do a female version of this or that. It's so lazy that it's just disheartening. Is that these are what the creative people in Hollywood are doing? Is that just flip the gender or flip the ethnicity, and then that's them being creative? It's ridiculous. It basically shows that the weakness in Hollywood today is they're incapable of beginning a new franchise. And even though my hope is that Dune does become a beloved franchise, that's at least we get to see 3 complete Dune movies. It's been made twice before, right? So in a sense, Dune itself is still kind of a reboot, right? So we'll see.
That's one thing I think Dune has going for it, unlike Lord of the Rings, because I know a lot of people, it's tough to remember a world where most people didn't know what Lord of the Rings was. But right. I have to remind people, when the first Lord of the Rings movie came out, most people, if they had any knowledge of the movies or of the story, were just they happened to read the books, or they only knew of the Hobbit animated Rankin and Bass special from back in the late 70s.
Right.
That's all they knew of Lord of the Rings, and even that was generally tangential. But then when that movie came out, it was huge, and everybody, of course, now is an expert on it. And I think Dune has that upper hand, is that people are already kind of familiar with it a little bit more in a way than Lord of the Rings. And I mean, I'm not trying to demean Lord of the Rings in any way. It was a very popular franchise before the films, don't get me wrong, but it didn't nearly have the reach it did prior to that. Dune, on the other hand, has the luxury of the 1984 Lynch film and the miniseries, so it has kind of at least a place in, nerd culture, at least already, kind of more so than Lord of the Rings did at the time it came out. Because outside of the Dungeons and Dragons, like, kind of nerd circles, Lord of the Rings was just Lord of the Rings. Most people either just knew of it or, I read those books back in high school, kind of thing. There was still big fans of it. Don't get me wrong. It was tough for me to find people to go see that first movie with. Like, you want to go see Fellowship of the Ring? They're like, what the fuck is that? That was my response usually for people. But no, the one thing about Back to the Future is never say never, because I think they found a loophole now with that stupid fucking musical. So be careful, Chris. We won't get a remake of Back to the Future, but we'll get Back to the Future, the musical, the movie.
I saw that trailer. It's fine. I mean, I would go see that live.
Right.
I've seen, plays like that. That I don't mind, because that is intended as a tribute, right? There's even an Evil Dead the musical. So I feel like they're doing a lot of that. So that I don't mind, but like a musical as a remake, I don't know. That would be, God, I please never make that happen.
Well, I was surprised they didn't do that with Footloose, because remember they remade that a couple of years back, and I'm like, why didn't they just do the fucking the musical like that one, like they did with Producers and stuff? Like that didn't bother me. And Hairspray, I was like, yeah, it's a thing, it's its own thing, it's a musical. The original is still the original. We have the musical. That's fine. See, to me, that doesn't trample on the original as much. I don't know if that makes as much sense or if anybody feels the same, but like when they do that, it feels like at least you're doing something a little different and it's not the exact same movie. Like, yeah, that to me, like, is ridiculous. That's why I didn't even bother with Footloose. Not that I would have anyway, but people told me it's like, yeah, it's just a remake of the original movie. I'm like, well, that's dumb. Why didn't they just do the jukebox musical that's like a huge hit on Broadway? That makes absolutely no fucking sense.
Right.
You know? Anyhow, thanks for telling everybody. Hit the like button though, Mags. We appreciate that. We do.
Yeah, indeed.
Like it when you do
Smash that like. You're getting some great commentary on Dune here just before the movie opens to everyone. So yeah, smash that like. Smash it for Dune.
I heard,
or for whoever. I want to run through one or two more.
I just gotta say here, though, I heard if you hit the like button, a non-terrestrial being gets tickled.
All right.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly, and he'll be tickled because
dimension.
he won't be called an alien.
That's right.
So yeah, good times.
And he had a positive encounter with a shark.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. We must not be offensive to or offend the sharks.
Yes.
Calling it shark attack. So encounters with sharks. That's brilliant stuff. What's happening with the language? And. I just want to run through a few more here. Callum Lyle said, can the sandworms create lightning? And the answer to that is, oh, hell no. And Callum, he also has another super chat, but I want to save that to segue into the next topic after the one we're going to go through. 32 Flavors of Nick Weiser said for $5. Just a token of appreciation for the great chat thus far. Thank you so much. And author Stephen Walton sent a little kitty super sticker, or maybe it's a doggy, it's cute either way. And Darius Munchausen sent a popcorn super sticker. So thank you so much for that. Dick Mustang points out that Dune is nearly sold out in Houston.
I'm going in. You can't say his name like that. Sorry.
Okay, fine. You say it then.
Dick Mustang.
And he says Dune is nearly sold out in Houston. I'm going in with very low expectations, being a huge Frank Herbert fan. The actors have no respect for Herbert. That's true, but they were told not to have so. That was a marketing decision. Diego Flores says for 5 Peruvian souls. Thank you, Diego. Everyone check him out Tuesdays and Thursdays on Midnight's Edge Espanol. For example, here in Peru, all movies open on Thursday, so October 21st isn't weird for us. If the movie is good, people will go here. Okay, that's cool. And Sidebook VR says for 5,000, I believe that is South Korean won. So that's awesome. Represents South Korea. Dune is basically a trippy feudal political drama in a sci-fi skin. When was the last time a feudal political drama movie hit big in cinemas? Closest is probably going to be Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. It has
and close as in the least far away.
Probably.
Yeah.
No, this is uncharted territory, but I think that it has the kind of stuff that got people into Game of Thrones in a way, except for the sex.
Right.
And they're fixing that now with the Amazon series.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be like, the hobbits are going to have like sexy time with each other. So, yeah.
Well, and at some point, there's got to be some kind of like, anyway, we're not going to get into that because, there's going to be multicultural hobbits. So at some point in the past, they decided to get rid of all the non-white hobbits.
Now there's a prequel for you.
Yeah.
But anyway, that aside, let's move into another topic about some other feudal people, namely the Eternals.
Right.
And Chris, I know you have some thoughts on the Eternals.
Or was that? Didn't you have a super chat to segue into that?
I have another super to segue, but that's for after this topic.
Okay. Well, we've all seen the expected. No one is surprised that Marvel had a world premiere for a new Marvel movie, and all the critics loved it. Who would have expected that? What
was it a triumph, Chris?
It was, yeah. So, I mean, none of the people who attend the world premiere, which includes an after party and a big red carpet and gift bags and whatnot. And
Chris, were you invited to this world premiere?
I never get invited to those things.
No, because there might be one person saying this wasn't a triumph.
Yeah, well, and I also wasn't invited to the critic screening either. In any case, I don't know how they determine. I am on certain lists also, but I'm a person that doesn't care about that stuff, so I never lobby for myself to go to those things. I just am, if I get invited to something, cool, and if I'm someone else's plus one, cool. But my preference is to always see a movie in a theater with paying customers, because to me that you get a more genuine reaction. To me, the real reaction is going to come from, is just going to come from seeing with an audience that paid their hard-earned money to be there in the theater. And I will get to Jason Gray, the spoiling of the film, because here's what I am told by people who have seen the movie. The reaction is incredibly lukewarm to this film. And not like Shang-Chi, where it's like, I do believe that there was genuine reaction, that people really like that film. The reaction to this movie, which is 2.5 hours, here are some of the keywords that you'll see pop up. There's a lot of story, and the movie is really dense. Those are not positive comments. It's over. I'm sure it's overly complex. I mean, Chloe Zhao she's came from indie film. Her movies are very pretentious. They're thought-provoking. They're earnest. And I have no doubt that this movie is exactly all of those things, right? It's very earnest. It's very thought-provoking. And everything is incredibly important. And it matters so, so much. It doesn't mean that as small indie movies that those aren't successful. I think that what she's done is what she's done in her previous work is very successful on that level. Like, that's what you come to expect, not necessarily for a big spectacle blockbuster, applying that tone and whatnot. So the audience they came out is, yeah, dense, different. It's a surprise. Like you're like, are those good things? But there's something that's, what I'm told is that it was a lukewarm, it's been across the board a lukewarm response. Robert Meyer Burnett, I think, had the most different response. He didn't parrot what everyone else has been saying about Eternals. Rob said that Eternals does what Ridley Scott was trying to do with Prometheus, which is tell a God story, right? Story of the gods. So he says and Rob saw it yesterday. So I'm sure he's done a video on it. He's a guy that's very careful about not spoiling. He's very respectful, which I appreciate. I've always appreciated about him. But his tweet about it was that it was the only, and I'm just like, oh, okay. I'm now I see why this is probably not going to appeal necessarily to general audiences. But that leak of the spoiler came from people who work at Variety. Also, Disney did nothing to shut those down. They didn't try to delete those tweets, right? If they were deleted, it was the critics taking it upon themselves. Additionally, there was someone who worked at Disney who said people are leaking, and they had this kind of cute, animated GIF of the Hulk, right? Like, don't spoil the movie. I 100% believe that leak was planned. That follow-up tweet from Disney about don't spoil the film was planned, because they know the movie's lukewarm, and the only way that they can get the audience to go see it is because there is a big reveal at the end. And I'm actually not going to say it here, but it's very easy to go find out, of a very popular actor among young women who love this actor or entertainer, who has now entered the Marvel universe. So they're super excited about it, right?
It's also a connection to another character. Let's just say that.
Yeah, so basically they're saying that, never mind this movie, but if you see it, watch all the tease for all the cool stuff that is going to come with this heartthrob that you like, right?
That's exactly right. So I believe that the leak was planned. I believe that that's a marketing strategy on behalf of the studio. Never underestimate Disney. I mean, Disney, when it comes to their marketing, they're very good. They're very good. One would argue that sometimes the marketing is better than the movies. I think that's a decent argument that could be made.
In a lot of cases, yes.
Yeah, in a lot of cases, that's true. So I believe it was planned, and I believe it's because they have a lack of confidence in this movie performing beyond the first weekend. I think that's and it's too different. It's too different than what people have come to expect from Marvel. I mean, already, I've seen all the trailers for the Eternals. There was sort of a tease and then sort of 2 more trailers, and they've been bombarding us with, if you're on YouTube, there are like these little 30-second spots. Nothing that I've seen of the film seems generic superhero movie to me, right? It just feels that. I want to say Fear is the Mind Killer. Great name. Many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Yes, they did.
No Bothans died necessarily, but I can connect the dots. I actually have direct knowledge of people who know about this. So this was just a planned thing, right? Like,
well, it's funny you bring this up because it almost reminds me, even though Venom was released by Sony, Disney does have technically an investment in it. So It almost makes me wonder if that was what kind of happened with Venom a couple weeks ago. Because remember, that got kind of pre-spoiled, but I think it didn't hurt the box office. In fact, I think it helped it.
Right. Yeah. No, I think so also. Yeah. It's disheartening that they have to tease the next thing to get you interested in the thing that's being served up currently. And we will not see another Marvel movie until May now, right? Things have been pushed back.
Well, here's the funny thing is, everything has been shut down for now and delayed, except for Guardians of the Galaxy 3, I guess, just started filming. I thought they were already filming this, but evidently all he did was the Christmas special so far, I guess. And so they're just starting to film Guardians 3. And that's the only one of the Marvel productions that has not been shut down for now, I guess.
Wow. James Gunn has no life.
Evidently not.
He's between like, I made a movie. I just on the side wrote a TV series, The Peacemaker. I'm doing Guardians 3. He's got some other stuff.
Funny you mentioned that because that's the only reason I'm tangentially and maybe intrigued by The Peacemaker, because I didn't really, his character was okay in the film, and I liked the film overall, but like of all the characters in the show, like that's the one you picked to make a TV show out of. I'm like, all right.
Shark too?
Is he going to be in there?
No,
I hope so. I haven't seen anything to indicate that we'll ever see him again. But I'm watching if he's there. He hasn't been in any promotion. He's never been mentioned in conjunction with it. But I'd be very happy with him involved in any capacity, because he was the best part of that movie to me, at least.
Well, can I just also say, hail chat, and thank you to the chat. I appreciate all the love, and I appreciate you fact checking us live in real time.
That's what they're.
We have an amazing audience.
Yes. Well, actually, which I love. I am sometimes the actually guy. So I appreciate the chat, and I appreciate you.
Yeah.
On the Gotham Rogues thing, that was a good catch, because I knew it was something like Rogue or Rangers, something like that. And tangential.
Well, that's my word for today. Evidently, I've used it plenty of times. And Andre. They even corrected Andre. Because I was right. It was the same year as Spider-Man. Spider-Man 2 came out in 2004, Andre.
Right.
Oh, okay. I thought there was
I was pretty sure.
Was it episode 2 that went head-to-head with...
Yes, first Spider-Man, and it didn't get killed, but it didn't do nearly as well as it could have.
Because I know there was some kind of thing that were like sequel went against sequel. That's what I thought about then. But again,
no, it just happened to be that Spider-Man was just fucking huge. That's why.
Right.
And it was the right movie at the right time.
And I knew it had to be because I remembered who I saw both movies with. So that's why I kind of knew that they had to be the same time period. But anyhow.
Yeah. But now with
the Eternals, I don't think anybody's expecting this movie to do well. I've been predicting that because they're saying that its pre-sales are doing better than Shang-Chi. So I'm like, it'll probably have a little bit better opening weekend than Shang-Chi, just built on the star power alone. But then what? It has a buttload of competition, and Shang-Chi got a month basically to play by itself without any competition.
Right.
And I still say that Sony, they must have gotten some pressure from Disney, because otherwise, if I was them, I would have released Venom 2 weeks after Shang-Chi. Like, and it would have made a lot more money than it has, because now, you know, Venom's been up against Halloween and a few other things in Bond. I mean, it's still holding its own, but now it's got Dune coming up here this weekend. And then you got Ghostbusters coming up in 2 weeks, plus Eternals coming out next week. So, like, Eternals is going to get buried in the middle of all these other things, I feel like.
Well, I believe that Dune, unfortunately, is going to fade fast, specifically because of the streaming option.
I hope you're wrong, but I think you're right.
Yeah, I want to be wrong, but
lest we forget, there is also the matter of the hype is gone now. I don't know that there's any hype for it. People wanted to see it 6 weeks ago, and they couldn't, and then they got over it. Then they forgot, and everything else came.
You're absolutely right.
I'm already starting to get hyped for Ghostbusters, because they're starting to do the
like now people want to see Ghostbusters. Stuff. It's like Dune coming now. Well, they wanted to see it 6 weeks ago, not now.
Right. True. Yeah.
It's like it's something I once heard that I thought it was like, this is actually really apt. Like, it was in Norwegian, but basically someone said about, let's not go into details, but like, I want this now, not afterwards. And that's true for this as well. Like, people, when it came out in Europe, when I saw it 6 weeks ago, the response that I got, or that I heard, was basically, I want to see the movie now. I don't want to see it in 6 weeks. I want to see it now. Yeah. And indeed, now, 6 weeks later, the people that were super excited, super hyped, like, whatever. Like,
no, they would have been 6 more weeks now. A 45-day window is what they should have done. They should have done what we thought they were going to do months ago. Because remember, you and I kept predicting, Andre, that was what was going to happen, is they were going to turn around and do a 45-day window. They were going to drop it in theaters for 45 days and then drop it on HBO Max. That's what they should have done. If they would have done that, I guarantee you Dune would have probably cleared $500-600 million easy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I don't doubt that for a second. I think that like these 5 or 6 week delay or whatever, that's going to have killed the movie.
Yeah. I 100% agree, and I'm sad to say that. So,
Etienne Falador has a good question here on Dune. Could I bring my 10-year-old to watch it? I'm curious what Andre and Chris think about it, but I'm going to say this: you could. I just don't know if they'd be entertained.
Well, I think it's really intense. I don't know. I think it's like, I mean, I read the book when I was 14, and it's pretty intense. There are things, especially related to the Harkonnens, and there's one scene in particular that I think is maybe too harsh for a 10-year-old. You know what I'm talking about, Tom?
Honestly, though, you're right. But honestly, I would say the Lynch version is worse as far as like violence and that kind of business. I'm more thinking of, will they be entertained? Like, I guess it depends on the 10-year-old.
Exactly. It depends on the individual level of maturity. I don't know that your 10-year-old is going to be entertained by this. And as a general thing, I would always say, in cases like this, actually watch the movie first, and then you think, will my 10-year-old be able to take this? / will they be entertained by it? Are we going to have a good experience with this together? Or is the 10-year-old just going to want to get out because the volume is too loud or whatever? See it first, and then try to decide, is this going to be a good bonding experience for us? And if you don't think it is, then don't risk it. I guess the
best gauge
I would say that this is like a high risk thing.
Yeah.
Because I don't see anything that's like instantly going to be like, wow, a 10-year-old. I mean, this is no Lord of the Rings.
I mean, I don't think there's anything too bad, like outside of the one scene that Chris is talking about.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything too bad as far as like violence wise outside.
Yeah, no, there's very little. That's
very little
bad
actually.
there. But it's the tone throughout.
Yeah.
It's the bleakness throughout. It's not a fun movie. And 10-year-olds generally like to go to the cinema and have like a good time, as in have fun. And I don't know that that's going to happen with this movie.
And if you're somebody who doesn't have the means to like go twice to see it or whatever, because I see you're in Canada, I think it's coming on HBO Max there too. So like, yeah, I mean, you could probably do it that way. But otherwise, I would say, if your 10-year-old is into stuff like Lord of the Rings or really into the DC universe right now, the DCEU, like there's kind of like in that region where it lies. Like if they love things like the Snyderverse type stuff mixed with Lord of the Rings, then they're probably fine. Again, it all depends on the 10-year-old and their taste and their maturity level, like Andre said. I think is the best way to gauge that.
100%.
Yeah, but I would this would not be my first choice to bring a 10-year-old to. Let's put it that way.
If your 10-year-old is into like the Marvel movies and stuff like that, not their cup of tea, probably.
If you love Batman, if your 10-year-old loved Batman v Superman,
that's why I brought it up. Yes,
yeah.
I feel like if somebody who's into that kind of a more serious, dour, kind of, it's not as dark as you would think, but it is very dour in a sense. Like there's always that looming thing, especially with Paul. So like, I mean, it's not a depressing mood, but it's definitely there's that tension throughout, and it's not a fun Marvel movie at all.
Yeah.
Not in that.
And Master Clockwork says that 10-year-old me loved David Lynch's Dune. Actually, I think that there's more for a 10-year-old to love in David Lynch's Dune, because like it's more out there. I mean, that's something that you can just look at, and you can look at like some of the actors from a child's point of view clowning around looking funny. I think they're like the David Lynch movie is going to be disturbing and more appropriate for a 10-year-old at the same time. Whereas this one is just dreary throughout. It's going to blow you away as an adult.
The Lynch version is also more cartoony in a sense.
Yeah, it is. It's like so cartoony in places, and there's none of that here.
No, the Harkonnens are fucking very dark in this one compared to that one.
Oh,
like you're looking at like it feels like what's his face, the actor I just forgot who plays Baron Harkonnen in the original. His version's like a Disney villain compared to this one. Like it is worlds apart. Like this is more like Freddy Krueger as Baron Harkonnen, like old school Freddy Krueger, not joking Freddy Krueger.
Like, and Walter White Walker says, plus Andre said there's tits in Dune. Not in this one. That's the sci-fi version. That one has the tits in it. That's a P2. So yeah. So there's that. That one actually may be the one that's the most appropriate for a 10-year-old.
That's the one I couldn't get through. I started watching, I just couldn't. I know people say it's good.
It's not going to be appropriate. It'll probably bore a 10-year-old from now to tears, because it's like a film stage play with PlayStation 1 cutscene level special effects.
You're absolutely right. PlayStation 1. Oh, that's funny.
Yes, indeed. And we got a couple more we can bring up here on screen. We got Mecha J, who says, what stopped my interest in watching The Eternals was lack of creator Jack Kirby influence in the trailers. The whole thing looked bland and boring. Yes. And it's interesting you bring that up, Mecha J, isn't it, Andre?
It's very interesting. In the next couple of days, we're going to have a video up on just that topic.
Exactly. So stay tuned for that. And Waltman4 says, thoughts on Ruby Rose sharing her experience during season 1 Batman shoots. I have not heard all the ins and outs. I mean, I know most of what we heard before. I heard she kind of confirmed a lot of things.
She spoke a little bit about like the general negligence of the producers and stuff like that people got paralyzed and everything, and no one really cared. I mean, apparently, like one of the females on staff there tried to victim blame the person that got paralyzed.
Are you fucking kidding me?
No, that's what she said.
Chris? I haven't got a chance to read up on it. That's the only. I mean, I know of all the stuff that was thrown, the accusations that were thrown before, and I know she confirmed a lot of them. But yeah, did you get a chance to read up on that, Chris, or no?
No, I haven't. I saw there's some videos out about it, but she's spoken about this before. That and it must be traumatizing, right? Like to go through an experience like that really makes you think about like, is this worth it? And she's on a CW show called Batwoman. She's not making $1 million an episode. Okay, let's be fair. So
no, and I see it from both sides of the equation. But yeah, like as far as this goes, like a lot of this stuff is unexcusable. Like there's no reason for it.
Yeah,
I mean, you can gripe and bitch all day about a suit, and I can make fun of her about that. And certain things of that. But no, when it comes to like people getting paralyzed and things that are like, even Script Doctor said there's he goes, I've been on plenty of shoots. I cannot understand why anybody would even let her stand under that to begin with. Like, where was somebody going, get the fuck out from underneath there? You're going to get hurt if that falls. Like, that's, he goes, there's supposed to be people on the set just for that reason. And I mean, I think that goes along with like the strike business. Like, that's the importance of getting good workers and enticing good workers to do that kind of work, because otherwise that's the kind of shit that happens. That's what we've been warning about, is like, you underpay people, overwork people, they don't get enough sleep, they don't give a shit, and things like that happen, right? And it's a tragedy.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that she also complained about, was that one of the producers, a female producers who had like only physically been there on set like 4 times, she was the one that was denying the production to be shut down when everyone else were shutting down left and right in the beginning of the pandemic. Everyone was nervous. Ruby Rose said everyone was like checking their messages with friends and family, what's going on in their district and everything. No one knows anything. And they weren't really motivated to work. They just wanted to go home and stay safe. But they were like, nope, oh, you're staying here and you're filming. Yeah. And they didn't end production until they were made to end production by external decree. So that was another of things that she complained about. So there appears, if Ruby Rose's description is to be believed, that there was no real thought of health and safety, and especially not for the below-the-line people. And that is something that is relevant to the super chat on screen, but also to the one that I said earlier, which was from Callum. Okay, yeah, it was from Callum, but that's a slightly different one.
Oh,
okay, we'll get into that afterwards. That's the Seaman wonders, thoughts on the strike happening. Will a strike make the wokeness worse, or will it squeeze the studios enough to realize they cannot afford to turn off audiences? Well, I think there's more at hand, but I want to hear what Chris has to say about it. I think that's a nice segue, because the Batwoman then clearly was a production where the below-the-line people weren't treated very well, because even the star wasn't treated very well, according to her. There were no thoughts to health and safety, extreme working hours, extreme working pressures, when no one really wanted to be there. And that, of course, affected the below-the-line people worse. And that's what the IATSE strike is all about. So, Chris, what's going on with that?
Well, I think that it's not been said overtly. I think this is about the vaccine mandates. I really believe it. And I think this is people pushing back. We're seeing it happen, but like it's quietly, no, it's not about that. It's about the weather when it came to the Southwest employees. But there are many industries, workers pushing back, saying they don't want to be forced to see. I'm trying to talk around it, to get the jab, to get the,
to get the pokey. You gotcha.
Yeah, to get the Pokemon.
I think it's 100% about that, and it's not being said, and that is something that has been glossed over in the media. So I think that that's what it's about. It's also, there's something sort of creepy about, like, they have, like, a friend of mine was explaining it to me, who has recently been he's a bit player. He's an actor that's a bit player on some television shows. You know, he'll get a line here or there, but there's like a zone A where the actors are, and then there's a zone B, right? And so they keep the actors separate from the zone B people, which are the IATSE workers. And there's a clear delineation between the masked and the unmasked. And it really, after a certain point, I think is ridiculous.
Well, there's always been that separation. And I think you're right, Chris. And that's kind of, I've heard of something to that effect too. Like, basically, yeah, it's getting worse. Like the whole below the line thing is the big sticking point, and how they're, you know, and we're seeing it not just in Hollywood, we're seeing it, you know, in politics and other places. It's like, you know, certain people aren't adhering to the rules that they make. Right. Let's say, no, I know it's tough to dance around some of this stuff, but yeah, you're right. And here's the other thing, and I'm curious if you're hearing this, because this is the thing that I keep hearing now too, because I had somebody alert me to the Mandalorian shutting down, and then a few other things that happened. And that was what I was kind of hearing, was that even though the media is pushing this idea that there is going to be no strike, they're working things out, everything's great, everything's hunky-dory, everybody on the other side is like, the fuck they are. Like, that's what I'm hearing, is more or less everybody's like, we're not voting yes on this, we're voting no, we're going for a strike. This is happening, folks. Like, that's what I keep hearing from people, is like, as much as the media is pushing this idea, and and they want to make everybody believe that there's not going to be a strike, it's clearly going to happen. And that's another reason why all these productions shut down. That's what I heard. I don't know if you heard anything similar to that, Chris. I'm curious.
No, I think that they're being quiet about what the real reasons are, which is about these mandates.
Well, I'm not talking about the reasons so much as I'm talking about why the media is just being, or you think that's the whole reason is just the mandate thing?
100%. I think it's, well, there's twofold. One, it's the horrible pay that's gone on for years, right? Like that, I mean, that's across the board. That crosses industries, not just entertainment, right? So I think that there's that aspect. And the other thing is I think that Marvel pushing their slate, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness is now pushed from, what was it, March to May, and they've just sort of they pushed everything. I think that's preemptive.
Yeah, they're pushing everything, but there's a little bit to that as well, because all Marvel movies, with the exception of Spider-Man and the Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3, as we touched on before, every single Marvel movie has been delayed. However, they've only been delayed by a couple of months each.
Right.
What does that tell you? When Marvel movies, even the ones that haven't started filming yet, like for instance, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, it hasn't started filming, and that's not pushed back at all. But all the others
just started filming.
Okay, yeah, but that's when it's not pushed back. But all the others are pushed back by only a couple of months. What do you think are the mechanics behind that?
I think it's, like I say, I think it's preemptive, because how many times did Black Widow move? I mean, there are physical posters printed with 3 different release dates for that movie. And I think it's confusing to audiences. And I believe that, like, before these things are marketed in a way where they have actual physical posters that will exist, because we've got some Comic-Cons coming up, right? We've got, and whether Marvel has a presence at those or not, there will be dealers there selling stuff. We've got San Diego Comic-Con coming up on Thanksgiving weekend, probably a bad choice. I think it's going to be all about shopping. I have 2 panels there, 2. And then I'm going to be at LA Comic-Con the first weekend of December. I have 3 panels there, and merch has to come out, right? The spice must flow. So I think that part of it is that, like, I think that the moving the date so often for Black Widow hurt it, because by the time it came out, I think people were sick of it. Like, all right, we've seen multiple incarnations of this trailer. We kind of know what this is. Also, there are no stakes in this movie because she's dead. So I think that they preemptively moved all this stuff just to, like, we're probably going to have to move it anyways. Fine. And movie theaters are not coming back. The theatrical business is not as robust based on the experiment that was Shang-Chi, and Black Widow was, by all accounts, an experiment, right? I mean, I don't believe the data that we're given, because they always want to tout they want to find a way to thread the needle to always tout success, right? It's always about that, no matter how bad the news is. But objectively speaking, these movies are not making as much money, right? It's just very clear. They're not making as much money as they did in the theaters. The theatrical business, I believe, is going to pivot more towards a sort of high-end thing, like almost going to a Broadway play, right? Where it's going to be expensive, and it's already like that. Like most of the AMCs in my neighborhood, I was never much of a AMC guy, but now I am, because my beloved ArcLight is closed. I used to go to the Cinerama Dome, the classic theater that you can actually see in the movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I love the Cinerama Dome, right? Well, it's closed, along with the entire chain of the ArcLight.
I think this is a big thing that's regional, because, and I hear you and Gary saying the same thing that I don't hear a lot of other people saying.
What do you say, Gary? Which Gary?
Gary of Nerdrotic, and that is that theaters are done for, theaters are closed. It's like, the thing is outside of LA and maybe some bigger markets, they're not. They're booming. In fact,
Right.
they're opening in other places. Like, that's the thing, is
they're booming in Norway.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Of course, Norway may be extreme because everything is back to normal here. But
and I think that's where some of the shift is. I think the thing with the Marvel movies, though, Chris, is I think you're right. They did not play as well as they were needing them to compared to other things. And I think Venom.
Right.
This is the thing: is look at how Venom just played compared to Shang-Chi.
Right.
Like I think that was the one that really, if anything, that might have caused some pause for Kevin Feige and crew over there, going, "Well, wait a minute, what are we doing here?" Because that I don't think they expected to do as well as it did. Right. And that movie actually, if it wasn't in the situation it was in, we know just by pure numbers, it probably would have done better than the first one. It would have probably made $1 billion, which I can't believe that a Venom movie would have done that on its own, right? But that's pretty much what it could have done, considering how it opened up against the original. And the original played for a while.
Now, what do we think about, I don't know if I should bring this up because I don't really know a lot about this. So, and I am not one that I don't like to speculate so much. I at least have to have my opinion grounded in some facts. Is this the last, the sort of the Spider-Man movie that's coming out? Is this the last Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland?
There's a question about that. And in fact, I think Andre and I are going to be working on a video coming up about that, because without getting into too many spoilers for Venom, because there's somebody on this panel who hasn't seen it yet, Andre, because it hasn't come out in Norway yet.
The exact opposite of Dune.
Right.
But I have also heard from a little birdie now that the movie is going to drop on Halloween on digital in some places.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, so they may have shot themselves in the foot there in the foreign market, but at this point, it's played its play here in the U.S., so that's probably why they're not so worried about it. That's
I guess my thought is, are they going to pivot to a Miles Morales Spider-Man that, like,
I don't know,
and there'll be Miles Morales will be introduced?
Maybe. I don't think that they're going to end Tom Holland once and for all. He's too popular, and he also has like a deal independently with well, his deal is going to be up pretty soon, though.
This needs an extension. That's what I'm saying, and that's what I think he's working on now, because he did comment on it. I sent you an article on that to go with what we're working on, Andre. But yeah. I don't foresee him not signing an extension.
That would surprise me greatly if he didn't.
And it sounds like things are going in the direction he wanted, and he was the one who was pushing a lot for more of the synergy between Sony and, because I think he kind of was telling us what Andre and I were trying to tell people was Amy Pascal's plan from the start was, okay, fine, if I got to work with Kevin Feige, that's great. We'll just get the idea that Spider-Man's in the MCU. After that second movie, we'll yank his ass out, and we'll just take him from there and go on. And I think Tom Rothman stepped in and said, nope, let them do it. We have a better chance of making more money letting Spider-Man stay in the MCU and allowing all these other movies to be more than just adjunct, in the word she used, to the MCU than we do having you trying to strike out on your own. Because as popular as Spider-Verse was with people, it is the lowest grossing Spider-Man movie. People keep forgetting that it did not make that much money. It did well on video, and it did well critic-wise and with the audience, but I don't think Tom Rothman is willing to take the chance of a Spider-Man not being attached to the MCU, because we've already saw what that does with Amazing Spider-Man 2, right? And that's where he stepped in before and said, nope, you got to make this happen, because he is not one to really fuck around with these things anyway. He hates superhero movies. So I guarantee you the last thing he wants to do is fucking deal with this thing. And that's no secret. He has said it publicly several times over. He thinks they are not even films. Like, he talks about them worse than Scorsese does. Like, he thinks they're just garbage.
I want to there's a super chat up from the Seaman, thoughts on the strike happening. I think we did kind of
got that one. Yeah, sorry.
But there's another question here, which is, will a strike make wokeness work, or will it squeeze the studios?
That's the next question.
Squeeze the studios to make it worse. Here's what I think. Wokeness is never going away, unfortunately, at least for the foreseeable future. And by that I mean, you know, if you look at the latest Bond movie, it's 98% woke free. But there's maybe 95% woke free, but there's 5% that's there, right? It's not going to go away. I think it's always going to be a part of it, because there is a percentage of the audience. It is a minority percentage of the audience, a small percentage of the audience that actually sort of appreciates, that being woven into the fabric of a film, but the majority of the audience is turned off by it. So what I think you're going to see is wokeness kind of fade into the background, where there'll be some sort of throwaway character. Do you remember when was it Jurassic World 2 came out? And they're like, and this one character is gay. And there's like no reason for that character to be gay. It was like I think I saw that. I think I saw that movie once and I thought it was awful.
The second Jurassic World?
Oh,
God, it is one of the worst fucking movies ever made.
The first one was like, oh, cool. Nostalgia.
Yeah, it was the Force Awakens of Jurassic Park. Yeah.
I remember liking Jurassic Park. Thank you for reminding me of that. And then the second movie was terrible, but there's this sort of little offshoot character, and it's like that just sort of like, what do they call it? Gay baiting, right? Or queer baiting, where they just take a random inconsequential character and make that character, swap that character's gender, race, sexuality as a way to appease a small percentage of the audience. That probably will never go away. But as it's been pointed out, I think the problem when it comes to like historical films, when you do that in a historical film and you make a historical film woke, it really breaks the fourth wall and makes the movie feel terrible, because it's like, yeah, this isn't historically accurate. This isn't, so I just don't think it's going to go away, but I do think it will be reduced or put more in the background, like it kind of was before, right? And I think that the pushback is actually the pushback that this channel represents among many others and whatnot, and people on YouTube that have pointed this out or been pointing it out for years and years. I think Hollywood has to notice this. There are number crunchers that are looking and going, hey, if you push too much of this, you're turning off the audience. I think the most obvious example is Saturday Night Live, which was a once great comedy show that I've watched since I was a kid. Right. It has its ups and downs, usually when they have a changeover in the cast. Right. But it really was around, and I think, who was I joking with? Chrissy Mayer, actually. She had me on her podcast, and we were talking about how come comedy doesn't lean into woke stuff, right? Because that's so ripe to make fun of. Like people like Ryan Long do that. She does that. And audiences like that. Even Bill Maher has noticed, like, hey, when I make fun of woke stuff, people really, it resonates. It resonates, one, because it's true. And there's but show it. But you definitely, I recommend seeking it out. Look up a parody called Woke Jeans. And it's a fake commercial about these jeans that are woke, right? Have you seen it, Tom?
No, but Chris recommends. Finally,
you see that commercial. Anyways, but that's like the one and only time that they really made fun of woke culture. Now it's like, hey, let's just make fun of Trump and anyone who's right leaning, right? Like that's, or even perceived to be, right? Because my politics are pretty center, but that makes me these days, right. Just because I'm sober-minded. And
if you are slightly left of Marx, just slightly left, then you're right.
Yeah. I if there's a common sense party, that's the one I want to be a part of. But in any case, that was and you've seen the ratings of SNL just plummet, right? Like just bad. Like that is, to me, like your comedy isn't resonating with mainstream audiences, and it's on television for free for people to watch, and they still won't do it. It's not like you need, to watch NBC on a streaming service. You can get it with a with an HD antenna, right? Like you can watch it, and people are not watching it. And that, to me, that should give everyone pause of like, hey, maybe we're making fun of the wrong things, or maybe we just need to make fun of everybody so everybody has a sense of humor about themselves. But I don't think it'll ever go away. It'll always be like this small little part of it underneath the surface. It'll be there. But I think if you look at like the ratings of TV shows are the real, that's the real sign. And also, right. I think the thing that's inoculated them and protected them is things like, like they hire Phoebe Waller-Bridge for Bond, and she doesn't really have as big an impact on the movie as we all thought, but because of the marketing, because of her hiring, it turned off the traditional audience for a Bond movie, guys. And also I think women are a big part of that audience too, because last I checked, most women like a masculine man. They still do. They still like that. I don't know why Hollywood hasn't woken up to that. I think they're just
awake again.
I think that they're hiring the wrong people in lower positions and listening to them.
Yeah.
And I think
that and marketing people and that kind of shit. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all permeated, and you're not like, when you certainly want to, if you're looking to hire a diverse group, you need to include diverse thought.
No, I think you're right. And Chris, I think the biggest problem is a lot of times they're also listening to like their social media director instead of actually reading the social media.
Which if you are on Twitter for any length of time, you would realize it's 22-year-old girl opinions that come from an incredibly uninformed place where there's absolutely no life experience behind those opinions whatsoever. So it's dumb people trying to school others, which is ridiculous. Also describes TikTok. Yes. And that's my rant.
No, and it's a beautiful rant. And I agree with you like 110%. I say like this all the time. This is not going to go away. It's a manufactured thing. But we will see ebbs and flows, and we're going to see another uptick because here we are seeing, as Andre and I will always point out, and I'm sure you've said many times before, Hollywood is a big, slow-moving fucking what do you call it? The ocean liner. And basically, when you got to make a turn, it takes forever to make a turn, and you don't notice it until you're already 2-3 years down the line, and then you'll see another turn. Well, that's all these turns happened 2-3 years ago is our whole point. All the movies we're seeing now in normal world, usually it's like a year or two out, where these movies are more than that now. We're getting to the point the kids in Ghostbusters Afterlife are now collecting Social Security. That's how long it's
That's true. I will say this, and I've heard this for years. Hollywood moves at a glacial pace. That's just the way it is.
Yes.
The general school of thought is it's from concept to screen, and this is fast, is 7 years. So, let's start working on designs and a script for the Eternals. Let's work on concepts for the Eternals. Well, that was years ago. Then they try to connect it with the director that has a tone, right? Then it's out. I mean, it's the average length of time from concept to screen is 7 years. So what we're seeing, the movies that we're seeing now were influenced by things that happened 7 years ago, which was 2014, when wokeness kind of really took hold. That's when it started to take hold, right? I didn't really even notice it until maybe 2015 or 2016. And I'll tell this story someday. I'm not going to tell it today, where I had a panel canceled by some, I don't want to get into it, but I had a panel canceled at WonderCon because of woke complaints on social media, which really, when you look at it, was like about 40 or 50 young girls were complaining, but they caved. I'm always about never cave. That's just my history in doing Film Threat and all the things that I do is if you don't like my shit, you don't have to read it. You don't have to listen to it. You can turn the channel. You can also not like me. And not only that, I don't give a fuck if you don't. It doesn't matter to me. I don't even know. These are generally anonymous people hiding behind some, I don't know, weird cartoon logo, just as I am also doing right now. But that's only because I'm wearing what I slept in, which I do appreciate that I'm allowed to do on Midnight's Edge. That's why I love the show. I'm just saying that. So if you look at it was 7 years from concept to screen, this is why Hollywood is generally, thought to be out of touch on things, because they're not really, they're in the zeitgeist from a while ago. Right. And if they're adding anything new that kind of updates it, it's because of reshoots that were done, right before the movie came out. And that happens often. It's actually generally planned for in the script or in the production. It's just we're going to do a week of pickups and this and whatever. And that's just like, and the actors have to be available to do that stuff, because even in the editing phase, like, well, we need a transition here, or we need an extra scene where we kind of explain the stakes, right? Like, we didn't really do that. It seemed clear in the script, but as we see it now. So that's pretty much for every movie. So when they say reshoots, that is not a sign that the movie's gone bad. That is something that is always now included, because it's an opportunity for the filmmakers to go back and kind of restructure things. So, but
but I think you're right. And the one other thing you pointed out is, I think when we actually know when things have kind of like, I guess, semi gone back to close to normal, because you're right, I don't think it's ever going to go away completely. But you pointed out SNL. I think it's in the nighttime television. So I think that's when you notice when, like, the guys like Colbert and all these other guys stop toting this bullshit that they've been doing for years. Once that kind of goes away,
see it happen. Remember, like Colbert, when it was made more acceptable to question the origins of the Wuhan flu, of where it actually might come from, because that was verboten to make any kind of hint that this was anything other than natural. Oh, this was a natural thing. It could have happened anywhere. It could have come from Michigan. It could have come from London. It could have come from Oslo. And if you believe any of that, you are drunk, because it came from one place only. There's only place
even
it
most
could have come from.
Say they don't believe that, Andre.
Yeah, exactly. But still, this was something that you weren't allowed to question. If you even spoke about it on YouTube, you can have your whole channel disappeared. And like the people that, like the late night show hosts that are like the people that bring out the message, basically, under the guise of comedy, but they basically just spurt out the approved message. And you saw on Colbert the moment that the narrative changed, when they signaled to people, now it's okay to say maybe it came from there. Then you had to have, what was his face? Like one of those guys going to another saying that maybe it's from there. And that's how you know it changed.
Well, that's what I mean. And you're right, Chris. Once SNL kind of changes its ways, once Colbert and all the nighttime talk show hosts stop,
then that's when you know that now it's now the narrative has changed. Now the things that were verboten to speak of, now they're okay.
But I think that what this has done is this has exposed all of this, that everything that's happened over the last, going on 2 years has exposed that, this may have been happening all along, right? Like, it was always this way. We just didn't notice. What's happened with this is it's exposed that, like, all of these, the late night shows, comedy, SNL, they're just tools, right? It's just that we notice it now because it's just right in front of our face. Like, oh wow, like this is, and also we have many more resources to go to do our own research, which we've been told we shouldn't do our own research because that's bad for us. Which, I just being a Gen X person, I come from the generation that all the popular Gen X movies are all about the corporate world sucks and question authority and telling people to fuck off. And the examples I'll give are Office Space, Fight Club. Nearly all the, even movies like High Fidelity. If you look at those films, it's all about, don't work for the man. Don't work in the corporate world. That life is full of shit. You'll have to compromise your values and sell your soul to live that kind of existence, that have that kind of job. And I have worked for companies like that. I've always had side projects. I've always had, like, I'm writing a book or doing a passion project. But, I have an opportunity to work for a company. Sure, I'll do it on my own terms, right? Which thankfully I was able to do for the time that I was at G4 TV and did stuff for Attack of the Show. I was able to do, within reason, I was able to express my own opinion, right? So, and that was rare. I think it was really because it was such a new network and they didn't really know it got increasingly corporate at the end, but then it ended and that was that. But I feel like heed that warning, because things are not going to get better in the workplace. And from my understanding, my friends who do work in the corporate workplace in Hollywood, it's just run on fear. People are afraid for their jobs. They're afraid to say the wrong thing in the wrong context. It's insanity. It's really insanity.
Well, and I think a lot of this is going to come to a head here with this, if this strike happens and shit. If you're right, Chris, I think you are.
Right. Yeah.
And
I hope it does. I think there needs to be a wiping away of everything. And I don't even know, I mean, this is going to sound nuts, but I think the only way to end all of this is really a national strike. If there is a national strike, not just IATSE, but Kellogg's workers who are currently on strike, John Deere workers that are currently on strike, certain municipalities, maybe in Chicago, where half the police force, the workers in the United States control everything. They're like the Fremen on Arrakis, right? They actually hold the power. And the elites don't understand this, right? They need to be reminded that the people that think they're in power, they actually don't hold the power. That's kind of what Dune is about, right?
Yeah. He who has the power to destroy something has power over that thing.
Exactly. Yes. And if the workers, the problem is that the solidarity doesn't exist. It's really kind of a 50-50 proposition where there are people just willing to go along with what I think is wrong. The mandates, I think, is wrong. And you have to have workers just all have to be in solidarity and say, we're not doing this. And Kellogg's was already like advertising to hire people to cross the picket line to work at Kellogg's to make, this our Raisin brand and whatnot. So I really think that's the only way this madness kind of ends, is a pause of, it could go for weeks, right? We've seen other countries do this, though our media is not even reporting on it, right? So, hey, Mags, working for a John Deere dealership. That's awesome. I
live in John Deere country.
And you see certain companies backing off and just saying, okay, we're going to have an exception. This isn't a law. This is something that was effectively a press release. It's not a law yet, right? It's not, and who knows how it can even be enforced by OSHA. So I really believe that, and that's why I think I'm really interested to see how deeply the politics are gotten into in Dune. They touch on it in this first Dune movie, but really it's really prevalent in the second, in what will end up being the second half, if it's ever made, which fingers crossed it will be. So yeah, apologies for another rant.
No, you're right though. But as far as Dune goes, you see a lot more of the setup than you do the actual happening, because that's going to come up, like you said, Chris. But no, the other part is, I think the bigger problem is the fallacy that's being presented in the media, through Hollywood, through everything else. And I think you and most of us here in the chat and on the panel agree that it should be about choice, not the other stuff. We're not talking about whether it's good, it's bad, or any of that shit. We're talking about it's freedom of choice. And then you also have the IATSE thing, which this is the first I've heard more about this being that part of it. I've heard more of the other bits. Like, this is kind of more news to me, but I can see where you're coming from and it makes sense, right? Like, because when you have a situation where you already have people that are already doing more than they probably should be doing for what they're getting paid, and they're already being treated like second-class citizens.
And I would imagine the mandates would affect them really.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just it's so frustrating, just because there are people for various reasons cannot get the job. I have a stepfather who's currently going through chemotherapy, and he has been advised, because of his immune system, not to get the jab, right? And he takes his own precautions, right? He wears a mask by choice, right? So I wear a mask if I absolutely have to, but I have learned that there are places in the Los Angeles area that are playing very fast and loose with the rules and don't care. And the owners of those small businesses are actively like, we are not going to be, just because I am now going to be going to get in and out probably today, they've decided they don't want to be the vaccine police, right? And they're even like the sheriff in LA County and the sheriff in Riverside have said that they're not going to enforce, the vaccine mandates. They're basically turning to corporations and retail to say, hey, you do this job for us, the federal government, that we completely bungled the messaging to people on this. We haven't necessarily made decisions exactly based on data that we've received, but we're going to use this as an opportunity to control. It's what's happening now. What's happening now in our world is not unlike the oppressed Fremen in Dune. So I encourage everybody to go see Dune in a theater. Even if you have HBO Max, make your second viewing on HBO Max. And if you do that, I'm just going to put Dune on a loop and just sort of have it playing on one of my televisions in the background, just so that it gets the views on HBO Max, because I want there to be a sequel. And I unfortunately, I do have to run time through, but I did want to kind of end with that and I didn't mean to have some sort of political rant, but
no, it's all comes together, unfortunately, at this point.
Yeah, I have concerns about where our country is going, and in particular, I'm feeling it in Los Angeles, where I'm surrounded by cowards. So I don't know.
And that's why I can understand why you guys, like you and Gary, who are also, still in that area, and other people, where I can see where you can feel that way. Like in certain other areas, it's like, it feels like in parts of the country where it's like, we just want to get past a lot of this shit now and move on.
Just to quote a large organization, I don't even know if I can say certain words,
Unfortunately, in this case,
you probably can't.
Yeah. I probably can't say that word, right? Or that thing that I just typed in.
Here's like the thing. If you have to think, can I say this? Then the answer is you probably can't. And in this particular case, no, you can't.
Yeah, and all I was going to do was quote what they already said online. So I was just going to quote.
But here's like the thing: when there's different rules for D and not for me, and all stuff like that, then you can say it if you're CNN. You can't say it if you're independent.
Yeah. So in any case, I don't know what the off ramp to all of this is. I don't know what the exit plan is. I don't think there is one. I think what the exit plan is a world that I don't feel comfortable living in, which means more than likely I'll be following Gary. He's leaving California, I think early next year. I don't know where I will go, but like the life that I had that was great here isn't here. And every month I find out about another friend that's been here for decades that's like, I'm out. I can't do it.
Isn't it ironic that the Fremen are wearing masks?
That's ironic too, but they have a very good reason for wearing masks.
Yeah, but no, I think you're right. I think we need, as to quote Dune, some desert power. We need to be like sand and get everywhere, just like them. We need to infest and fucking.
Yeah. But Chris, have you read the Dune prequel books? The one about the Crusade.
I have
the Butlerian Jihad trilogy.
No, I have not read those.
It's extremely relevant to the last 2 years. I mean, as I was reading it, I was like, oh my god, this all happened. What's next? Going to be like a virus attack? 5 pages later, virus attack.
Yeah. Oh my god. But it's it's disheartening. I'm glad that one of the great things about fantasy, science fiction, and even superhero films is it can touch on important topics. I don't think the Marvel films have done that much. I think The Dark Knight was very forward thinking in Lucius Fox saying that this thing is, using these devices to spy on people is evil. And now we're living in, it's like, oh, that didn't really, it's like back then it was just like, oh yeah, that's a fantasy thing. Oh, now we know that it is like, that resonates even more now. And I think really good fantasy and science fiction touches on what's happening today and comments it in a way that we can come to our own conclusions. And last thing I'll say is, please see Dune in a theater and then run it on a loop on your HBO Max account for
that's solid advice. I agree. Run it on loop. You go put it on at night and watch it at loop. Then you don't have to see it yourself. Just do it.
Awesome. Hey, I want to thank you, Tom and Andre. I want to thank everyone in the chat. You're all amazing. I really appreciate your kind and supportive words. I even appreciate the words from the people that tell me to go fuck myself. So
no, we don't mind a little discourse in the chat.
Yeah, just to throw out a couple recommends, I may have mentioned a movie called The Spine of Night.
Yes.
It's like a heavy metal comic book brought to life, animated feature that I think you should check out, and a documentary that just came out called Pharma Bros on my YouTube channel at Film Threat YouTube channel. I interviewed the director of Pharma Bros, which oddly enough has a comic book connection, and it's about Martin Shkreli, who is the most hated man in the world. So I interviewed the director of that doc. It's a great. Just look up the Pharma Bros trailer and the Spine of Night trailer, and check out my interview with the director of that documentary. It's really pretty amazing stuff. I have a lot of other recommendations, but next time I'm on. So
there
cool.
We go. I have a button for that. So
Chris recommends.
Right. Take care, Tom, Andre.
Take care.
Thank you so much. Later.
Thank you for being here. We'll see you next time.
Take care. Bye.
All right, let's get into some super chats here.
Yeah, let's do that. And now I was hoping to do this with Chris, but he had to leave because things take time. Callum Lyle.
We actually got him a lot longer than we had planned. So actually, kids,
he wonders, is Kathleen Kennedy literally trying to kill Harrison Ford? She hates men, but... So, Tom, do you think that...
I'm hearing all kinds of now. No, I don't think she's trying to kill Harrison Ford. But
no, she needs him to finish the movie.
I am hearing all kinds of wacky things out of that production. I don't know what to fucking believe anymore. I'm hearing there's the shutdown had more to do with there's going to be a shutdown and they're going to rewrite a bunch of shit.
Here's what's interesting though: all the other Marvel movies. They're pushed back a few months. It means nothing. This is pushed back a year, like literally a full year.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of retooling in 1 year.
That's what I'm hearing is there's going to be a complete... I think, and this is me speculating, kids, from a little bit of what I know and what we know from Doomcock's video and some other stuff.
I've heard a couple of other things. So we have a video
interesting to hear about what you have to say too, because what I heard basically was that they got that shit's real. All the stuff Doomcock was right.
It's all true.
It's all true.
Horribly true.
And I was hearing similar shit too, and that's where I said I don't know about the whole hat thing and her taking on the thing, but then the whole thing that leaked about the time travel was true, and the whole business with him getting erased was possibly true. So yeah, they're going back to fix some shit.
And also keep in mind, what would it be? Then you have Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who is a British brunette. And have we seen another Kathleen Kennedy self-insert who was a British brunette anywhere? Anyone? Can anyone help me out here? Does that ring any bells? Yeah, is there a Rey? Now, what happened in Rise of Skywalker? What happened? What kind of role did Rey play in that story? The new Kathleen Kennedy self-insert, as opposed to what happened with Luke Skywalker. Well, she usurped him. She took over his role. She took over his legacy. She even took over his freaking name. So there's precedent for this.
Now, I don't know if all that stuff was true.
I don't know if every detail, but the gist of it, I have heard from multiple sources, independently of each other, that yeah, there's some things off in the detail, but the gist is horribly, horribly true.
Oh yeah, Jyn Erso as well, yeah, and then Khaleesi and Solo.
Yeah. And this would have been more of the same. More Kathleen Kennedy self-inserting herself into franchises previously occupied by problematic men that need to be taken down a peg.
And Cameron thinks the movie might not see the light of day, and he could be right.
How hilarious would that be if that's another prediction that came true?
They would probably use the shutdown or the strike or whatever to fucking as a reason, yeah. But
I think it's more likely that they're going to throw so much money at it that it's going to come out and it's not going to be as atrocious as it was going to be, and then it's going to bomb.
Yeah, I think
anyway.
I think we're going to get another No Time to Die. I think you're right. I think we're seeing the same kind of setup, right?
Yeah.
Like it was the same shit I was hearing from behind the scenes on that too. Internal shit was not going well. They had some reshoots that didn't go well. They had to do more reshoots. Shit got shut down, and they were going to use the shutdown and this other reason and that reason to fucking do reshoots. And it's all sounding the same fucking shit, and it's all along the same kind of lines. And there's one fucking player who's similar, but in this situation, supposedly she's not doing any writing. But here's one thing I do know about Phoebe Waller-Bridge from a very reliable source, and that was was encouraged by KK and she to do her bits in Solo. So a lot of that shit, I'm guessing, was not in the Lord and Miller version. In fact, I'm not even sure if she was there during the Lord and Miller version. You get what I'm getting at here?
Probably she wasn't.
KK loves her.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I know this from a very reliable source. KK loves Phoebe. So I would not be surprised if a lot of this shit was true. Yeah. Self-insert cucumber. I'm not going there.
No, Phoebe, I'm sure that Phoebe Waller-Bridge would go there, but
I know that's what I'm saying. I'm not gonna. No.
We'll leave that to her. She can do all the insertion she wants, and she's done a lot of it on Fleabag. So
I do think this movie will not. I mean, it will get released. It's one of those movies where it's kind of like, and this is what I said to Cameron too. First of all, we got to wait for the inevitable replacement of Mangold. Yet that has to happen. That will happen still. Yet he's going to get fired, and somebody else is going to be brought in, probably Ron Howard, and and then the movie will come out. And you're right, it's going to be a piece of shit. Will it be as bad as we thought it was going to be? No, but it's still going to be one of those things where, it's going to be a No Time to Die situation. I bet.
Probably.
And the one to blame will be Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Well, to be fair, though, she's hired to do a job, namely to destroy Indiana Jones. The one who's ultimately to blame is the person who gave the order to destroy Indiana Jones in the first place. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
No, and that's what I'm putting together. A lot of that's my speculation, but it'd be interesting to see how this plays out.
Oh, yeah.
But yes, we had a couple of classic super chats.
Yes, we do. We do have a couple of classic super chats here. We have, let's see where we were. 32 flavors of Nick Weiser sent us $5. Just a token of appreciation for the great chat thus far. Thank you so much. Primark Vulcan set for $4.99. I distinctly remember seeing promotional photos of JGL wearing Robin's suit. Yeah, we got this one. And that was fan photos. And we got Peter Smigelski's. We got... then it's EVA Unit 4A says for $5. Why does no one ever talk about Sci-Fi's Dune series? Was it that bad? I really enjoyed it, despite the CGI, low-budget lighting, and no-name cast.
I assume you sent that in before we did bring it up.
Yeah, and we've brought it up quite a few times, actually. I mean, we even reference it in the Ultimate Dune retrospective. So I can't say for everyone else, but it actually was a pretty huge thing when it came out. That's 20 years ago now, though, but it was never on the big screen. And also, here's the thing. It was really successful. For the TV production, it was a great success. So it doesn't have like that cult thing to it, because it was a big hit just a few years before like sci-fi series got to the point of Battlestar Galactica, where they kind of like became timeless. It's still like really dated because of the effects, the direction.
That's
and everything.
The problem with it right there, Andre. It's very of its time.
Yeah, it's dated. I would say that right now, it's like, ironically, it's more dated than the Lynch movie.
Yes, I agree with that 110. That's what I'm saying. Like, it wears its age more than the Lynch film.
Yeah, it does.
Much more so. And again, I'm not saying it's bad. I've tried watching it. I remember when it came out, though. Andre's right. I remember it being a big, huge fucking deal. I vaguely remember watching a bit of it here and there, and I'm just like, man, it just didn't have it didn't suck me in like the Lynch version did. And at that point, I was still not that on board with Dune, because I tried getting into Dune twice before my recent years. And I think and that goes back to that question earlier. Like, I'm not so sure that Dune is something that unless the mind of the 10-year-old is mature enough that a 10-year-old could really get into. And I'm not saying they could grasp it or not. They can grasp it probably, but that was my issue when I was younger, when I first watched Dune and couldn't get into it. It's just, it was boring to me. Yeah. Like, there was nothing happening. I was used to Star Wars, right? Like, I was used to, why isn't this story clicking along? You know, like, I'm like, what something needs to happen here. But then when I watched
exactly, like, I don't think that a 10-year-old is going to enjoy this movie.
Yeah, and you got that's worse here in this one. And then, but now, like, seeing the original version now and all that kind of stuff, like, I have a new appreciation for the Lynch version than I didn't have before.
The Lynch version is better today than when it came out,
in some ways. And then we are getting, you were excited about this, Andre, in a foreign release, actually. I think it's Germany. The Spice Cyber edit is actually going to be on Blu-ray officially.
Yeah, they're not sending it to Norway. I emailed. They only said so. I have to find someone.
Goddamn bastards!
Yeah, I know, those sons of bitches.
I know. I want that set too. It's beautiful.
Yeah, so we have to find someone in Sweden or something that I can.
All right, some of our Swedish friends get a hold of us out there. We need.
Yeah, do that. Like, if you're Swedish and you want to help us out, send me an email.
Yes, please. So yeah, anyway, back to the super chats. Thank you.
Yeah, before then, Brian Barth, he's been asking this a couple of times, I think. Tom and Andre, question: how was the Batman radically changed? I would like to know the story. I think what he's referring to is the story of how you went from the movie that was supposed to be written and directed by Ben Affleck to the movie that we're now getting. And to me, that's a really ugly and disgusting story. And the ones to blame for it are that whole crew that were brought in to do the retooling of Justice League. Because under Snyder was when all of this good stuff started, with like Ben Affleck's Batman and all of those things, and then they went in a completely different direction with the showrunners. Well, not the showrunners, but basically the people that were going to run the DC universe going forward. And these people, they wanted to kind of end everything that was started by Snyder, apart from the things that they had to keep, like Wonder Woman. And at the time, they also had to keep Aquaman, because that was already deep into production and couldn't be stopped. Although they changed the visuals and stuff like that to make it like more colorful and pop more. But Batman, the people behind the scenes there, they didn't want to do a Ben Affleck Batman, because that would tie them too much to what Snyder had done before, that they wanted to get away from. So you had like these stories in the press that saying that, oh, Ben Affleck, he couldn't really nail the script. Yeah, the reason that he couldn't nail it was because he was essentially being sabotaged by the producers who were supposed to work with him. And the reason was that one of the producers already had a different pre-written script in mind. And so Ben Affleck was basically browbeaten till he couldn't take it anymore, and then he left. And of course, it was a long process in the media. But before it was announced that he was stepped down from directing, it was already clear behind the scenes that they didn't want him to reprise Batman. They didn't want him directing, and they didn't want to use the script that he was writing. And he had the script. He had a script, and there was nothing wrong with it. It's just that he got like note and change request, which, from what I understand, was really only aimed at frustrating him, till the point where he left of his own accord, because someone there had this other script based on Batman Year 2 that they wanted to move forward with instead, with a younger, sexier, more Twilight-inspired Batman. And that is the movie that we're now getting. So it's that whole thing there, how you had the people responsible for the Justice League retooling, the Whedon people that pushed Affleck out and did this movie instead. I think that that's such a disgusting thing that movie is tainted to me. It has to be so unbelievably good for me to look past that. And as we said before, I thought that that trailer that they cut a year ago was better than this final trailer. And I told Tom that the theme written by Giacchino, the musical Batman score, was like one of the most Batman things I'd ever heard. I take it back. I listened to it in full, and it's not. It's the Twilight Batman, and you're right. It's what we're hearing in the score. I have only heard like a 15-second clip. It was 15-second clip of when it got good. It ain't that good even. So I remain wholly unconvinced about that whole movie.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I got too many Batman Begins vibes from it, year one vibes, regardless of it being year two and all that business. I love Andy Serkis, but I don't know why in the world he's playing Alfred. The rest of the cast, meh, whatever. And I've said what I have had to say about, Pattinson in the past, and I'm not trying to pick on the guy because, and I'm not trying to say.
Although there's plenty to pick on.
There is, but I'm not trying to say he's a bad actor. But I'm in all fucking seriousness, I did see a little bit more. I will give him this credit. When he was on at the DC Fandome thing, I did get at least a little bit more out of him as far as passion for this project, because regardless of what he meant by what he said to what was it, Vanity Fair?
I think so.
Yeah, whoever it was, I think it was Vanity Fair, where he said, I don't want to set a bad example and work out and all that business. I'm serious when I say this is it, man. This is your last shot. Because I call him kid, but because he's younger than me, but he's not that young, right? And Tenet didn't do anything.
He's not young. Dude, he's in his 30s or something.
Early 40s, yeah, or close to my age, yeah.
Yeah. He is at a point where he's not a kid anymore.
That's my point.
This is an adult. The time when he was a kid is over now. Twilight was a long time ago. This is someone nearing middle age.
Well, and that's my point. Is he's got to be taking this more seriously. No, you don't get this opportunity to get a second chance in Hollywood that fucking often. He should be thanking.
Well, maybe he is behind the scenes, and I
don't know. I hope he is, because this is it. This is his shot to prove to people that he's not the Twilight guy. Because regardless of everything else he's done in the last few years, he has yet to break through to the general audience as anything else but. And we know for a fact that that's the reason why Warner Brothers wanted him. In fact, they were even thinking about casting what's-her-ass as Catwoman. And that I heard again from another source. So I'm starting to believe that rumor. That was really the precipice behind this whole idea, was we will get that Twilight female crowd to come see this movie. We already got the guys because it's Batman. But if we get Pattinson and possibly what's-her-face to play Catwoman, we can get that female demographic.
Yeah, okay. He's 35, 36.
I was going to say, he's a little younger than me.
Yeah, that's old enough. That's old enough.
That's my point, this is it.
The guy's mid-30s.
This is it. This is your shot, buddy. This is your chance to become an A-list actor. Your last shot. Yeah, Kristen Stewart. That's who it was. Yeah.
Yeah. And another Gen 42 points out, my niece wants to see the Batman because of Twilight.
Exactly.
So it's working on some people. Yeah, I've heard the same thing. I was like, no, it's because he's a talented actor. He said, no, we've heard it from behind the scenes. It's the Twilight. This is Twilight Batman. That's literally what they're going for. They're going to bring in the Twilight moms and everything like that, and that's why they went with him.
And I loved Matt Reeves' little lying game that he did on the show. Yes, I get it. Some of the stuff may have been inflated. And
Matt Reeves was against having Pattinson in the first place.
He can say
he had his mindset on this other guy.
Shit. Because I think he even quoted it once saying he actually wanted what's his face. So
yeah, I always forget that dude's face.
Yeah, the guy from Nicholas Hoult.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
which I'm not saying he would have been a better choice, but
No, it was bad anyway. Like he's that general type, isn't he? They were kind of like going for a millennial, not too much of a macho man. Shall we put it that way?
Yeah, that's
not
what they
too
want.
much, not too much
They
muscle. A little bit on the
Batman. This is
a little bit on the sensitive side.
Yes, this is going to be emo Batman, kids. That's what this is going to be. I'm telling you now. I know enough about it that I know that's what. I mean, it might be a decent movie overall, and yeah, people.
And if you listen to that score, and that's why I take back all the praise I've given to the new Batman theme before. I take it all back. It's the emo Twilight Batman score, or certainly theme.
And I'm disappointed because, unlike you, I did enjoy Matt Reeves' Planet of the Apes films. In fact, I thought 2 and 3 they got progressively better through the series. Like in the order I like them in is 3, 2, 1. In that respect, and
the order I like them in is 1.
I know
1 being the original 1968.
No, and I understand,
but the others can.
I don't know how much. See, to me, like I grew up on the originals, and I always saw the last 3 on cable all the fucking time. And the fact that they took those last 3 movies and kind of made this trilogy out of them, I appreciate that. And to me, it's like that's what I think they should do more of. But that's neither here nor there when it comes to Batman. Matt Reeves came into a pre-existing world as well. That's the other thing. This is a completely different situation. He's starting this from the ground up, and all I'm seeing is a lot of Nolan and a lot of basically shit to get in the young adult crowd. That's what I'm seeing here.
Yeah. And you're seeing it because that's what's going on.
And I can't trust him from the ground up because I've never seen him do anything from the ground up. Not that I can recall. I mean, I don't know him outside of the Planet of the Apes, and if I have, I didn't know that I wasn't aware that he was involved in it.
He's a J.J. Abrams.
I was going to say, what is the other things that he directed? Was he the one who did the? What was his big first movie? Was not.
I don't know. I didn't do some Alias or stuff like that. I just know him from Clouds.
Go ahead and read a super chat, and I'll look it up.
I was wholly unimpressed with that, but yeah. Moving on with the classic super. Actually, we have one we can bring up on screen here, so let's do that first.
Cloverfield, that's the one that it was. Yeah, and I didn't like Cloverfield either, so there you go.
No, neither did I. Troy Pacelli says for $5. Once again, trying for a new audience and losing the fan base because this has worked so spectacularly before. Here's the thing, though. I see enough people deluded into, well, they may not be deluded, but I see enough people willing to give it a chance that it may pay out, at least to begin with. But we shall see for how long. Oh, he did Let Me In. That's like the remake of a much, much superior Swedish movie. Because the original Swedish Låt den rätta komma in, that one was pretty decent, and then you have the remake, which is just that. So again, I stand by the same thing.
Oh yeah, I remember that one too.
Yeah.
That one's a funny movie because that was one when it came out. I worked at Movie Gallery, and they made us take the original off the shelves, not the remake, the original.
Jesus Christ! Yeah.
Because people complained about CP. Children stuff.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah,
I
so
see. It's a Swedish movie. So
nationwide Movie Gallery made us pull it. It's like, oh Christ! Now you're just gonna make people want to see it more because they're gonna want to know why.
Yeah, probably. But anyway, so yeah. But then moving on with the classic super chats. Then we have, or we left off with. Give me 1 second here.
No problem. Yeah, I never saw either one of them though. So, but I've heard if I'm going to watch,
Swedish is vastly superior.
Yeah.
There's no real reason to watch the American remake by this director, who he's another bad robot acolyte.
And honestly, Siano or Sino, how Sauno? How do you think you say that?
Sauno, I guess.
I don't think Cloverfield should be watched on any screen. I think I literally fast forwarded thank God the old PS3 when you would hit fast forward in 1.5.
You know what I was
play
thinking?
The audio. So I fast forwarded through the last hour of that fucking movie.
You know what I was thinking as I was watching that movie? I was like thinking, this is a cool idea, but it would have been like it would have been like better if it's called like Hulk Smash or Rampage of the Incredible Hulk, and it's like a point of view of like the people as the Hulk and Abomination are crushing the city or something. I was just like thinking that, so I didn't like it. I don't like it at all. I hate it.
Out of the movie. First of all,
as he says, like it's like Blair Witch Project, only more expensive. I'd rather rewatch Blair Witch Project. Man, that movie was cool. I like Blair Witch Project.
First time it's cool, but once you know the gimmick, it's not. I tried rewatching it after the first. I couldn't. But with Cloverfield, there was the two moments that took me out. Was the moment that fucking look. I've never been to New York. I've never seen the Statue of Liberty.
I have.
But when that fucker's rolling down the street, I know that is not accurate. And I'm like, there's no way that's the right size. I've seen Ghostbusters too, right? No. Like, and then the other problem I have is the filming aspect of it. Motherfuckers filming everything. It's like, just put the camera down. They should have pulled a Blomkamp, right? Like that would have made the movie better. Sure, the first 20 minutes of the movie can be in the cam shit. Then you drop the cam and you just turn it into a regular movie. That's what I love about District 9 is it sucks you in at first through the news footage and the found footage kind of feeling. And then that goes away and it just turns into a movie, right? And then the other problem is why the fuck is the kid going back into city, risking all his friends' life for a chick that maybe is still alive? And that's a big fucking maybe. And then he ends up getting them all killed anyway, so it's right.
I don't even remember that. It was just so bad. So
that's the only reason I remember it is because I had to fast forward through it, and that's what I'm thinking through this whole goddamn movie. Yeah. Was I'm like, this is the dumbest shit ever. Put the fucking camera down. You're already out of town. Get the fuck away.
That's what I mean. Like people, they pay too much attention to Robert Pattinson. What you should be worried about is the director. I mean, that is my huge reservation here. Is the director that everyone in the Access media is like so excited about. I'm like, in my point of view, and this is just my personal opinion. I know, Tom, you like the Planet of the Apes remix and many others too, but personally, I don't think that this guy has directed a single good movie that's ever been put out so far. Not a single one.
He might. Here's the thing. Here we go again. Here's where we have a situation where he may be a great visionary director, right? Like I haven't even looked to pay attention to see who wrote those two movies. What I'm going off of is I did like the story. I like how they integrated stuff from the original franchise, but yet made it fresh. But what really sold me on those last two specifically was the advancements in the special effects, because I notoriously fucking hate CGI. And the first thing I came back and told you after I saw that movie, even though you didn't give a shit, so you don't remember probably, was that I cannot believe how good the CGI was in that last movie. There was some shots that even though I know it's not real, they had gotten to that point now where they have almost photorealistically been able to make me believe that fucking ape is on screen and he's doing his thing. Like that to me is what really sucked me into those. Besides that is because I can buy into the story. I can buy into the characters. Andy Serkis's performance, all that kind of stuff really pulls me in. I should go look and see who actually wrote them, because that's right. Looking at the trailer, oh yeah, visually it's stunning. You're right. Like the cool action sequences. I'll be honest, it evoked a feeling in me that I can't really explain. That kind of reminds me of that pulp comic-y feel. But the other half of it was the other half of the fucking trailer, which drags it down, and that's when it turns into fucking a CW fucking show. And I'm like, it's too conflicting here. I feel like I'm watching two different movies in a trailer. It's weird. I mean, sure, some of the cool Batman shots look neat. It almost feels like I'm watching an old, like if I would have, like it has that kind of sepia tone feel to it. It looks visually stunning. Don't get me wrong, but the other parts are just, it doesn't intrigue me. So I get where you're getting, like, maybe that's the thing. Maybe Reeves is a visually stunning director, but the rest I don't know about. He could have poor decision-making skills.
He's not visually stunning. He's visually manipulative. He knows exactly how to do like the shots that look really impressive, but they're just they're just like.
But that's what J.J. Abrams is good at too.
Exactly,
right.
But that's what I mean. I mean, he's just another J.J. Abrams. He's just another J.J. Abrams. And as Grease1984 says, Reeves has been the original Abrams boy, the first of the bunch. They created Felicity together. So I don't think he's a brilliant visualist at all. I think he's...
I don't know if I use the term.
He has a visual
I don't think I use
flair.
the term brilliant.
But that's only because they have kind of like mastered the formula of how to make it glitzy. To suck in the masses and trick them into thinking this is something visually stunning.
I would put him on a level maybe in the Zack Snyder, J.J. Abrams area. That's what I'm
saying. J.J. Abrams era. He's another J.J. Abrams.
We know that,
but we have more super chats to run through here, so let us do that. Sent us a diamond super sticker, so thanks for that. Orville Nation, hey Orville, says for $10. Latin X term is imposing other cultural agenda on Latino culture, perceived by elitists as a second-class culture that can just be told what they have to do. Que se jodan. So, yeah, exactly. It's a disgusting term. Infinite Wanderer says for $5, respect your elders, children. Remember that sharks are not only older than dinosaurs, sharks are older than trees. Sharks, 450 million. Trees, 370 million. Oh, there you go. And yeah, I do believe like the sharks are like from the Devonian period, aren't they?
Yeah.
Or if not even older, but I think it's from Devonian. So the geological timescales rule, but they're like difficult to keep track of them all. And then we have Deleted Scenes, who says for $5, I've seen several Nolan films in the same theater and only had a problem with Interstellar's sound mix. Luck, or is it a non-issue being overblown? No, it's not a non-issue. There are so many people that have had issues with it that it's more to it. John Apocalypse says for $2, it's so dense. Everything has so much going on. I think he's referring to Dune, and that is entirely right. Deranged Lunatic says, long live Tech TV and Attack of the Show. And then we got these two. The Waltman 4 says, thoughts on Ruby Rose sharing her experience during the season 1 Batwoman shoots. We covered this one earlier. And then we got this one here. Christian Coralejo also said for $2, have you guys heard the Ruby Rose Batwoman news? Yeah, we got that as well. Sean Carter says for $5, reflecting on earlier in the conversation when sharks were mentioned. Remember, folks, an encounter with Surfshark is always positive. Indeed it is.
It is.
Your Muslim uncle says, did they still call Paul the Mahdi? I think they did, didn't they, Tom?
They bring it up, but he hasn't gotten to that point yet.
Yeah.
The name has been mentioned, though. That has, yes.
And Callum Lyle says for $5 Australian, when you mentioned the Killing Joke, Alan Moore admitted he didn't like the story. Yeah, I think you mean that that he didn't like the animated version of it, or that he didn't consider it canon. I think maybe he didn't like it. I don't know.
I think the canon bit is what they meant.
But Alan Moore doesn't like anything, so what's new with that?
Yeah.
And Orville Nations also said for $5, the Orville Season 3 was probably pushed too much because the strike was anticipated. Oh, that could very well be. Revcor says for $2, I got to severely disagree with you guys on JW2. Tom, remind me.
Jurassic World 2.
Oh, okay. I haven't even seen it yet.
And yeah, I mean, of course, it's a subjective thing, but I mean, you're not going to get a lot of support in the chat, I don't think. But yeah, if you enjoyed it, good for you, I guess.
Yeah. And then we have, let's see where we were here. Powder's Plain says for 100 Norwegian krona. Question 1. When can we see a new Richard Gere in the post-China world? Question 2. Is Richard Gere civil rights man or social justice warrior? I have no idea. Tom, what is Richard Gere?
Is he even still employed?
Isn't he like a Buddhist or something? I mean,
on that respect, yeah.
Isn't he like Buddhist or whatever? Dalai Lama and stuff like that? Because in that case, he's going to be cancelled by China. I don't know too much about that, but I think that he's more like Dalai Lama fan, and the Chinese don't take kindly to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that much about him, so yeah.
And Planar Aspect sent a $2 super chat with no message, or the message has been removed, whatever the case may be. Thank you for the donation. STR Red Wolf says for $5, I would leave California because it's too expensive to even live there.
Yeah.
The poverty level is $80K a year there. And yeah, that's pretty nuts. Mattias Fredriksson sent us 10 Swedish krona with no message. Tusen tack, Mattias. That's much appreciated. And Katarina Senpai sent us $4.99, saying, Hunter x Hunter. Main character is trapped and told there is only one exit that the group must agree to open. He just breaks the wall down instead. All right, thanks for that summary.
Way sometimes, huh?
And Lupu says for 20 Mexican dollars, does Andre know about BlackRock financing wokeism? And yes, I do. This is what I've been trying to hint at without getting too explicit about it, because we'll be shut down.
Yeah.
But in many cases, the wokeism that comes from the funding partners, and some of the most woke things that is funded and propped up by people who don't expect a return on their investment because they're investing in another cause altogether. Some of the funding from, for instance, Star Trek Discovery comes from funding places like that. Yeah. So yes, I'm quite aware of that.
And I guess Planner Aspect, here's proof that, this thing does happen where, the YouTube bots or Google or whatever will delete things that you guys say.
Yeah, they do that.
Planner Aspect says all he said was, I said, goal is making life a subscription.
Oh, yeah, they would, you are entirely right, and they would absolutely delete that. So, and thank you for censoring yourself and saying that, because that's where we are. Not saying that's a good thing, but that's how it is.
Yeah, so we try to get to what we can, but sometimes the bots just do that.
Exactly. And Taker 6110 says, "Oh no, Wakanda forever delayed. Oh no, that's really tragic." And Adam Wofford says for $10, "I like the Lynch version. The change from the fighting style to sonic weapons. Knowing the personal shields would cause nuclear explosion, and it was like a kung fu movie." They did some interesting things in the Lynch version, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think Herbert even enjoyed the sound weapon.
Yeah. And Troy Paselli says, once again, trying for a new audience and losing the fan base, because this has worked so spectacularly before. I think we got that one already, but it bears repeating. And on PayPal, we got another message from Willie Woodward, who says, do you think there would be any chance at Affleck's Batman could ever get a show or something on HBO Max? I want to see his take. Is there a leaked script? There is no leaked script, but there is a chance. There is a chance.
And those chances are getting higher from what we're hearing. So
it's not getting any smaller.
No, and I've been hearing more rumblings about the air cut. I'm not so sure it's going to... See, people are saying that they heard it was going to drop in March. I think we're going to hear about it in March, is what I think is more likely.
Well, probably. I'm surprised we didn't hear anything at DC Fandom.
Yes.
But this is something that they can put together.
I don't think the I's
quickly.
are dotted and the T's are crossed yet. That's what
I think that's happened. Yeah, probably. But
if you remember, just a quick note on that, real quick. If you remember, David Ayer said something like 2-3 weeks ago, right after the Suicide Squad. Well, it's almost been a couple months now, like a month or whatever. Right after the Suicide Squad came out, he said on his Twitter, "This is the last I'm going to say about Suicide Squad." And at that moment, I think there was something going on, because right after all that stuff was going on, that's when I started hearing these rumors. And then Mike,
exactly that to me, that sounded like, okay, we heard you, now shut the hell up while we work this out.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. And then we got in a final super chat before we round out here from the Mad Leprechaun, who says, The movies I feel did the camera point of view better than Cloverfield are Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, Frankenstein's Army, and As Above, So Below. Of those, I have only seen As Above, So Below. I love that movie. That was awesome.
Yeah, I've not seen, but I've heard good things about Behind the Mask. But here's my thing: it's just inherently, I do not like POV films. I just don't. The only time I like POV is in porn and on video games. And even in video games, it's very selective on the POV aspect. I don't mind a POV kind of camera right behind you, even in video games, but I don't like that in a movie. To me, that's not a movie. It just makes me feel like I want to pick up a controller and play, or I'm going to get seasick because the camera won't stop shaking. Because that's one of the things that I hate is when you can't just see what's going on in a scene. Like, a movie is supposed to pull you in, not make you feel all jostled like that. I don't know. It doesn't feel right to me. I don't like. That's why I never was a big fan of the whole fucking found footage craze to begin with. I have not seen any of the Paranormal Activities or any of that shit. Cloverfield, I think I accidentally watched because I didn't know it was found footage till I started watching it. Like, that was when I kind of got tricked into it.
It wasn't advertised as such. Again, they used like every bad robot trick in the book. And then Hypergiver 2 says, "Rip Chris Ayres, the voice of Frieza."
Voice actor yesterday passed away. He's done a lot of voice work for anime and stuff, and I think he even may have, unless I heard somebody wrong, forgive me if I'm wrong, but somebody said he may have even done a voice in the dub for Squid Games. But I guess he was not very old either, so I guess he's a pretty prevalent voice actor in the especially in anime world, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not familiar with him.
Yeah, me neither.
But in either event, he will be missed by the anime community, I am certain, and may he rest in peace. So
I know he was prolific enough that he was trending when it was all trending and stuff. So, like, again, I apologize that I don't know of him, so I can't.
So it's a little bit beside or on the sides of what we cover here. So, you have to excuse our ignorance, but he obviously left an impact, and that commands respect.
Absolutely.
And with that, we are fully caught up. So then I would like to say thank to everyone watching and to Chris Gore for joining us today.
Check out Film Thread on YouTube.
Yeah, the link for that is in the description as per usual.
And it always we love it if you tell them we sent you. That always brings them back more. So,
and also, before you go, smash that like. Help us because it really helps us with the algorithm, and the algorithm has been beating us up pretty badly as of late. So do smash that like, help share the stream, and we have some more scripted content for you this week. So be sure to check in on the channel regularly in case you don't get notifications. Just check in because we have scripted videos coming, and lots of them. And till then, what do we have next? We have 4K for you tomorrow.
4K for you tonight. Well,
tonight is it? Oh yeah,
you're tomorrow technically, but and hopefully maybe if you're awake long enough, you can join us for a little bit. But if not, we got some upcoming 4K news and stuff like that to talk about. I'm gonna see if maybe we can get a guest in tonight. If not, if you can't join us, if not, join me and Valiant Renegade at 5 p.m. Central for 4K for you.
Excellent. And with that, also, thanks to everyone watching. We couldn't do this without you. So, and with that, I do believe it is time for some of those Australian little furballs in the rain.
And Sadie agrees with you.
Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given, koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given, koala.